A restaurant my family was going to for a party refused to allow my disabled child to go through the restaurant, demanding instead that we go through the back entrance of the loading dock. But after trying to simply comply and do what they say and not cause a scene, I finally snapped, as I felt they were dehumanizing my daughter and discriminating against her simply because of her disability. And at this point, I don't know if I'm in the wrong or not, and I just don't know what to do moving forward. Here's what happened. Okay, I really need some perspective here because this situation left me deeply unsettled. For context, I have a beautiful 7-year-old child who is medically complex. She's blind, she's non-mobile, she's non-verbal, and living with a serious seizure disorder. Recently, my family hosted a celebration at a highly regarded local restaurant, and my wife, my children, and I all planned to attend. On the day of the event, we received a message from the event organizer stating that because my child uses a wheelchair, we would need to enter the restaurant through the non-public facing loading dock all the way in the back of the restaurant. The message explained that when we arrived, we could call and the staff would let us in. My initial reaction was that the message felt inconsiderate, but I assumed it was well-intentioned and I just didn't push back. While on our way to the restaurant, I asked my wife to call ahead of time and confirm whether there was a wheelchair-accessible entrance. Well, the person who answered told us that the front entrance was accessible. Based on that information, we parked in the designated handicap parking directly in front of the restaurant, unloaded my daughter, which as many parents of disabled children know, takes some time and effort, and we entered through the front door. At the hostess stand, we informed the staff that we were there for the party. The hostess then told us the event was in the back room, but then she said that we could not pass through the dining area and would instead need to use the side entrance. Now, without wanting to cause a scene, I nodded and guided my family back outside. We then walked approximately 7 minutes around the building to the side entrance. And by the way, it was already around 5:30 p.m., so it was already dark, with single-digit temperatures and sub-zero wind chill. The side entrance turned out to be a dark alley with no clear signage and a moderately sized outdoor stairwell with no ramp at all. I then asked my wife to go inside and see if a staff member could assist us. A waitress then came out and politely suggested that I could lift the wheelchair up the stairs myself. Well, after being cold, frustrated, and exhausted, I asked to speak with a manager. After waiting several minutes with no manager appearing, my brother-in-law noticed us, came outside, and helped me carry my daughter and her wheelchair up the stairs. Once inside, the manager approached me and asked if there was a problem. I then explained that the side entrance was not accessible and that we had been denied access through the front door despite being told it was accessible. The manager then responded that we should have entered through the loading dock. At that point, I became visibly upset, and I explained that the American Disabilities Act is about more than mere access. It's about equal convenience, equal experience, and most importantly, equal dignity. I explained that forcing my disabled child to enter through a non-public loading dock, requiring a long walk around the building in the extreme cold, walking past the trash and service areas before reaching the dining space, felt profoundly dehumanizing, not just for me, but to my child. The manager then said that she would inform the owner, but I replied that we are family friends with the owner and that we support the restaurant, and that I was not trying to make a scene, but I hope that this could be a learning moment. I ended by asking, admittedly with frustration, whether disabled patrons were welcome to dine there or whether they were always expected to enter through the back. During this exchange, my wife asked the manager to ignore me as I was clearly upset, and other family members also noticed the tension. On the drive home, my wife argued and yelled at me that I had been rude to the staff and that I should have just simply used the back entrance, given that it was a celebration and not the time to address this. I responded that I never intended to make a scene, but I will always advocate for my daughter because she cannot advocate for herself, even at family events or places that we love and support. Yes, I was angry, but the experience felt deeply dehumanizing. To make matters worse, my daughter had a seizure on the way home. But regardless, I'm still processing this and I'm honestly not sure what to do next. Okay, this story was infuriating. I don't know if anyone else felt that in their skin. Like, oh my gosh, I am so livid. Like, there's so many things wrong with this, and none of it come from the original poster or their daughter. First and foremost, to the original poster, you did the right thing. You were absolutely justified in getting frustrated and just a little bit pissed off at these people for not having some kind of accessibility for your daughter. You know, your disabled daughter who has a right to be there. And if I'm being honest, I don't think you were angry enough. Like, if that was me, I would have been flipping tables. I would have been right up in their face and saying, what do you mean my daughter can't go through the restaurant? No, I'm not going through the loading door. Are you crazy? There is no justification from these people for not allowing your daughter to go through the dining room over to the party. I don't care what their excuse is, because if they don't have the access for your daughter to get there, then congratulations, they're not compliant with like a bunch of laws. Like, that's unacceptable in and of itself. But also, if they just don't want someone who's disabled going through the restaurant itself, well then congratulations, these people are being discriminatory and that's also not okay. So you're in the right here. Like, you absolutely absolutely had to be an advocate for your daughter because clearly she can't do that herself. She's 7 years old, she's got a litany of medical problems, and it's not her fault. And in my opinion, you're completely justified to be pissed off at these people. I don't care how much of a family friend the owner is. This is not okay the way you were treated that day. Walking around the back to a back alley entrance through the bitter cold, all while taking your disabled child up the stairs with the help of your brother. Like, that is sick and twisted. Are you kidding me right now? When it comes to your wife, also, she is completely idiotic here. She's more pissed off at the fact that you were slightly frustrated, which again, you could have been way more pissed off if you really wanted to and it would have been okay, as opposed to these people literally discriminating against her daughter. Like, where is her mindset at? She should have been right next to you and been like, oh yeah, this is absolutely not okay. Because if you're gonna claim to be wheelchair accessible for like a restaurant or something like that, then congratulations, you need to accommodate accordingly. You don't tell them to go back through the loading door just to get in the restaurant. That is crazy. That's incredibly dehumanizing and not okay. So no, you are completely justified for being pissed off at these people. That is unacceptable the way they treated you and your family, and I also think your wife is completely in the wrong for trying to spin this against you when she really should have been standing right by your side, equally as pissed off at these people for literally forcing you to walk around the building just to get into the restaurant. That is some unacceptable garbage, and there is no good excuse. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I've worked in hospitality for 10 years, and I think what really hurts the most is feeling like I'm beneath people, because now it's honestly starting to weigh on me and I simply can't take it any longer. Here's what's going on. So like the title says, I've worked in hospitality for almost 10 years. I've been a waiter, a supervisor, a manager, all at different places, but I still have the same feeling. It's an industry where who you know matters more than what you know, where someone becomes a manager at 22 years old because they know the right people, and then they'll ask you how to do the job that you've been doing for years. When you speak up, you're told, oh, that's just part of the job. And honestly, what hurts isn't only the long hours, and it's not just the rude guests. It's the constant sense of being underappreciated. Like, guests or customers think that we owe them something just for being there. Some people don't even really look at you. They talk at you and not even to you, like you're part of the service and not a person doing it. There's this quiet idea that because they're paying, they're above you, that respect, patience, or even basic acknowledgement are optional. You give your energy, your time, your calmness, even when you're exhausted. And most days it goes completely unnoticed. You learn to accept it, you lower your expectations, you tell yourself, oh, it's just part of the job, until one day you realize how heavy that feels after years of doing it. Now, I don't hate people, I don't hate hospitality or anything like that. I just wish that basic respect and fair recognition weren't treated like something extra that we all have to earn. Because after years of doing this, I'm honestly just very tired. Oh man, raise your hand if this connects to you, because I absolutely connect with this. I've done jobs as like a server or like a front office worker at like a doctor's office, or even like a cashier and anything in between with like customer relations. And my God, I understand completely what the original poster's talking about. I can't stand customers or guests or like medical patients who come in and act like you are like their slave or something like that. It's obnoxious, and my God, is it prevalent. Like, I've run into so many people who expect you to bend over backwards for them while they give you the worst attitude you could possibly expect. Like, it is so obnoxious. So truly, I connect with this story so much, and I feel for the original poster, because being in that industry is definitely not easy. Am I the jerk for refusing to move my dad's old car from my neighborhood? Because right now, my neighbors are suffering after my condo association literally made a new rule because of me that's directly affecting them, putting me in a situation where I simply don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I'm a 26-year-old female and I own my own condo in Tampa. My dad passed away 8 months ago and I inherited his car. It's a 2004 Honda Accord. It's kind of beat up and it's definitely an eyesore if I'm being completely honest. I have my own car, so the Accord just sits in my assigned parking spot. Well, the condo association started bothering me about it like 4 months ago, saying it's abandoned because I don't drive it enough. I've gotten 6 violation notices and probably about $2,000 in fines at this point. Well, here's where I might be the jerk. Last month, the board passed a new rule. Any vehicle that hasn't moved in 14 days is getting flagged. The owner gets one warning and then the daily fines start coming in. They said it was to keep the lot from becoming a storage facility, but everybody knows they made this rule because of me. The thing is, this new rule is now screwing over other people. There's an older guy on the first floor who travels for weeks at a time for work, and he's gotten fined twice already. A woman in Building C had surgery and couldn't drive for 3 weeks, and she got fined as well. Someone went on their honeymoon and came back to a notice on their car. Now, people are pissed off at the board, but also they're pissed off at me, because everyone knows this rule exists because I wouldn't back down about my dad's car. I got a letter signed by like 12 residents asking me to just please get rid of the car so the board would repeal the rule. One guy even knocked on my door and said that I was being selfish and that my dad wouldn't want me making enemies over a piece of junk. Now that one really stung because he's probably right. My dad would tell me to stop being dramatic and pick my battles. We weren't even that close until like the last couple of years of his life, and half the time that I look at the car, I don't even feel sad. I just feel stubborn. But also, I didn't make this rule, the board did. They could have just left me alone or made an exception or literally anything else. Instead, they went nuclear and now everybody's suffering and somehow that's my fault. I know I could end this tomorrow by selling the car, and it's probably worth like $2,000 maybe, and I've already spent more than that fighting. At this point, I don't even know if I want the car or if I just refuse to let these people win. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for not backing down even though my stubbornness is affecting the whole building? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, while I am kind of a fan of how like obstinate and stubborn you're being, I do think this is your fault, and I do kind of think you're the jerk here because it sounds like you don't even want this car. You weren't that close to your dad, and it sounds like you're just keeping it around to try and like prove a point, when in my opinion, it's probably just easier to get rid of the car, like you don't even want it anyways. So yeah, I do think you're the jerk, and I think it would probably be better to just sell the car and move on with your life, because this is clearly pissing off your neighbors, and I just don't think it's worth the hassle. Am I the jerk for not wanting my boyfriend's parents to join our dream vacation after he literally invited them without asking me first? Because right now it kind of seems like it's all falling apart, and I'm at a point where I'm super frustrated and I just don't know what to do next. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years and living together for 2. Overall, our relationship has been very good. He has mentioned several times that he plans on proposing within the next year, and we hope to start a family around 2027. He also has a close relationship with his parents. He visits them weekly and goes on yearly family holidays with them. I also have a pretty good relationship with his parents, as they've always been kind and supportive towards me. Now, we have dreamed of doing a United States RV road trip together next summer. As we're planning to start a family in the coming years, this would probably be our last big trip as a couple. We're based in Europe, and traveling to the United States is very expensive for us, so this is likely a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Well, during Christmas at his parents' house, the topic of travel came up. When we mentioned our plans, his mother said that traveling through the United States had been a dream of hers as well. My boyfriend then asked his parents if they would like to join us, all without discussing it beforehand. Well, his mother immediately said yes. I didn't address it at the moment because I didn't want to create tension during a family holiday, but later I shared with my boyfriend that I felt uncomfortable with how the invitation happened and that I would have preferred to be consulted first. He then explained that he saw it as a practical solution, since renting an RV is expensive and sharing the cost would make the trip more affordable, but I told him I needed time to think about it. After reflecting on it for a week, I still felt uncomfortable about his parents joining us. I had always thought about this trip as a couple's experience rather than like a family vacation. Given our plans to start a family, this really felt like an important opportunity for us to travel together. While I love his parents, spending several weeks together in an RV would involve limited privacy and different travel needs. When I shared this with my boyfriend, he became very emotional. Then he told me that he worries this could be one of his parents' last opportunities for a major trip. They are pushing 80 and would not be able to afford something like this on their own. He wants to spend meaningful time with them and create memories while he still can. While I do understand where he's coming from, this trip was always meant to be a shared dream between the two of us. Being expected to change the entire nature of it after the fact makes me feel as though my wishes and boundaries are secondary. So my boyfriend suggested a compromise, renting a car and staying in hotels instead of an RV. But I declined, as the RV experience is a big part of the trip, and hotels would be more expensive. At this point, my boyfriend has said that he intends to go on the trip with his parents, whether or not I join. And I'm struggling with how I feel about this and what it means for our relationship. So seriously, am I the jerk for sticking to my boundary and not wanting his parents to come along? Because at this point, I don't know what else to do. Okay, in my opinion, first off, no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your boyfriend absolutely should have consulted you first before being like, hey mom, you want to come along with us? Like, dude, you gotta talk to the other person who's doing the traveling as well first before making that kind of decision. Like, his rationale behind it was like, oh yeah, well, it only makes sense parents. An RV's gonna be expensive, so I brought my parents along. But it's like, bro, if you felt that way, then maybe talk about it ahead of time instead of justifying your crappy decision. Because my God, what is he doing? He literally just bypassed you and said, oh, this is what we're doing. My parents are coming along, and if you don't want to go, then guess what? I'll just go anyways. And it's like, what kind of weird ultimatum is that? I mean, does this guy even care about you at all? Like, it really doesn't seem like he does. It seems like he's only thinking about his parents and not his future wife. Like, what is happening right now? So no, you're not the jerk, but honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be so pissed off because your boyfriend essentially ruined this trip that you've been looking forward to. And that is absolutely not fair. My boomer mother simply does not understand the job market because she thinks it's easy to get a job when in reality, it is literally one of the hardest experiences I've ever gone through in my entire life. And now, after listening to her complaining all the time, I seriously feel like my mental health is taking a hit. And at this point, I simply can't take it anymore and I don't know what else to do. Here's what's happening. So I need to start off by saying that my boomer mother is completely out of touch with reality. It's like her brain is running on outdated software, which has not been updated in decades. She's retired and still thinks the job market is the same as it was during her time. You know, when you could apply for any job you want, have a one-stage interview, and maybe get hired right on the spot. Anyone looking for work these days knows that that sort of situation is extremely rare. So I've got a computer science degree and I've been looking for work in tech for a few months now, and I've done over 100 applications. I already have experience and I have worked for multiple companies before, alternating between permanent and freelance jobs. I could easily increase the applications if I wanted to, but that's not the main problem because I have been getting interviews. The main problem is that every single interview is a multiple stage process where you have to go through many rounds with different interview screens, hiring managers, other developers, and tech testers, etc. It's unfortunately just the way that companies hire for these types of roles. But my boomer mother does not understand it at all. In her mind, all interviews are supposed to be one stage, and you should be getting an offer on the day or a few days later if it's going to be face-to-face. What she fails to realize is that firstly, these types of roles are getting about 100 applications, and secondly, the company is probably using AI to sort and filter candidates, adding another level of difficulty before you can even talk to a human. And then, even if you do get an interview, you're not the only person the company is interviewing. I had a face-to-face interview with a company, and my boomer mother believed that meant I was the only person they would interview, and that I should get the job unless I screwed something up. Well, lo and behold, I didn't get the job. And you know what? When I signed in on the day before the interview, I saw that at least another 6 people had interviewed with that company already today. That's how competitive the job market is. She sees the news about unemployment and the bad economy in the news, and it still does not register in her head. I even tried applying for some non-tech roles as an experiment to see what it's like on the other side. I applied for 2 delivery driver roles and I got rejected. One had too many applicants, so the job was not available, and the second, I was told I lived too far from the depot, so I wasn't eligible for an interview. I even tried a warehouse job, but I just got completely ghosted. They never even bothered to respond to my application. And yet my boomer mother assumes you can apply for any job you want and just get hired easily, saying, oh, you must not be trying hard enough. But I am interviewing, and I've either made it close to the final stage or made it to the final stage interviews, which is no easy task. And instead, she's ungrateful and rude and can't understand why I'm still interviewing at the same company like almost 3 months later. But seriously, that is just the way it is. You think I want to be interviewing the same company for months? They are not going to give the first person they interview a job offer on day 1 of their interview process. Like, she will never understand what it's actually like. Instead of congratulating me for making actual progress, you know, going through these tiresome interview stages, which is affecting my mental health, by the way, she's complaining because I had an interview with a company that is still interviewing other people, and they didn't choose to give me an offer on the day. Instead, they chose to interview the other candidates on their list. Like, seriously, can you hear how ridiculous that sounds? The job market is bad across almost all career fields today. I worked in a non-tech career field before, and even that hiring process had multi-stage interviews, and it had reference checks. It's just tiresome having to explain how bad the job market is to her, why it can take months to get a job offer, and how people can end up being unemployed for months. The only thing that comes to her simple mind is that unemployed people are clearly not trying hard enough, and that finding work is easy, so there must be something wrong with us. But it's like, yeah, right. I'd like to see her compete with over 100 other applicants for the same role, and justify why she should be the one hired over them. But that won't happen because she's analog. She can't even use a computer to do job applications, and would be forced to go out with a handwritten resume because she can't use a Word document or a printer. Because in her day, finding a job was easy, but in our day, it's not. Also, the concept of ghosting is also foreign to her. She has no idea what it is and why people or companies would do that. She believes that if you apply for a job, then you should 100% 100% be getting responses from all of them. So when I don't get responses to some jobs or interviews, she just assumes that I screwed something up, or that I'm not good enough for the job, and that I should try a different career field or something like that. When in reality, people get ghosted all the time regardless of career field. Maybe the job's not available, or there's a ghost job posting, their hiring's on pause, there's a rude hiring manager, they're just slow to respond, etc. and so on. Like, there are literally dozens of reasons. She also foolishly believes that because she sees people working in different stores and restaurants when she's out and about, then that must mean that the company is hiring and has jobs available. So I should go out with my resume and hand it in. But if you go out with a physical resume looking for work, you look completely out of touch with reality because everything has become digital, and the majority of job applications are done online. Just because you see people working in a store or in an office, it does not mean the company is actively hiring. It just means that those people were lucky to get jobs, but she doesn't know what it took for them to get the job in the first place. Maybe it took them months for them to get there, but she can't see what they went through. All she can see is that someone has a job and they are working, so getting work must be easy. Like, seriously, make it make sense, boomer. I'm tired of her gaslighting and making everything up with her outdated logic. She only had to do maybe 10 job applications with a one-stage interview to just get a job offer in a day or so. Meanwhile, we have to do hundreds of job applications and go through multiple stages of interviews over months to get the same results. We are literally not the same, and honestly, this job search is messing with my mental health. And trust me, my mom is absolutely not helping with this. Yeah, I would be pretty pissed off if I had someone saying, "Oh, it's so easy to get a job." Meanwhile, they've been retired for like 15 years and they have no idea what they're talking about. Like, that in and of itself is super frustrating, and I would also be very pissed off. So hopefully things work out for you and you're able to find a job and get her off your back. Because you can bet if she tried to get a job nowadays, she would probably crash and fail just like anybody else. Because you are so right, the job market is so tough right now, and it is a miserable experience trying to apply for so many different jobs. A toxic entitled delivery guy refuses to move his car out from in front of my driveway, and despite me asking him nicely to please move so I can go into town, he still refused to do anything about it, claiming that he could park wherever he wanted. So I decided to get some revenge by literally returning the favor, blocking his delivery van from going any further, thus making his life a living nightmare. Here's what happened. So this happened some years ago, but I still remember the situation very clearly. My house has a garage next to it and a driveway to get out of my property and onto the street. The street in front of my house is rather narrow. Two cars can't pass each other safely, and there is no sidewalks. And next to the street are walls. And in that area, people like to build small stone or concrete walls around their property, and they're not really high, but it's high enough to make it a barrier for cars and such. There are no official stopping restrictions, but due to the narrow street and the numerous driveways, it's obvious that parking on the street is a really bad idea. Next to my property is a restaurant that gets stuff delivered every now and then. The kitchen entrance is next to our driveway, and the delivery drivers usually park on the parking area across the street so they won't block traffic. For reference, the street is mainly used by residents, so there is not much traffic anyways. On one particular day, I had to leave quite urgently, as I was heading to the town hall to pick up some documents, like my new identification card. Exactly on this day, a delivery driver decided to park his van next to my driveway just to save some meters of walking. He didn't block my driveway, but I couldn't exit my property, and backing up to get out wasn't an option either because of the concrete walls. When he came out to pick up the next box, I kindly asked him to move his van. Well, he denied and pointed out that he turned on his hazard flashers, as if they're somehow entitling him for parking wherever he wants. He continued delivering and left me kind of annoyed because of this entitlement and stupidity, but it's right about now that my petty revenge starts to play out. I was sitting in my car, still blocking half the street, as I couldn't get out. The delivery driver finally finished his job, started his van, and wanted to move forward so he wouldn't have to back up, which obviously was a pain in the butt. He then gestured to move away, and I could have backed up my car 2 or 3 meters so he could pass me and do a U-turn further down the street. But you know what? I didn't. Instead, I switched off my engine and switched on my hazard lights. And you could literally see how he went from annoyed to fuming in anger in a split second, which made me laugh even more. After shouting out some profanities, he realized that I won't move. So he had to back up like 300 meters while still yelling and ranting profoundly. And sure, I was late for picking up my documents, but I seriously couldn't stop grinning for the entire day. Wow, I love this story for so many reasons, but most of all, I love the fact that you gave his energy right back at him. Because seriously, this guy was blocking traffic on a narrow street, and for him to be like, sorry, my hazards are on, I'm not leaving. Like, that's obnoxious, and I don't blame you for getting back at this guy. So yes, this was some fantastic petty revenge, because this guy absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for declining to fix the errors that my sister-in-law is pointing out in a blanket that I crocheted specifically for her? Because right now, she's acting so upset and has been very rude to me, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I made a blanket for my sister-in-law, who we will call Amanda. I was able to give it to her last weekend, and she had requested it in certain colors. I didn't have any other projects to do on my list, so I was happy to make it for her, and I had most of the colors already too, so it kind of worked out. When I gave it to her, she was excited, and she started to look it over. I figured it was to see how it was put together, since she didn't crochet, but after a little bit, she said that she loved the blanket, but she couldn't help but notice some of the little mistakes that I'd made along the way. I then asked her what she meant, and she pointed out some things, like I'd accidentally done one row of stripping instead of 3 for one section, and how I'd switched to the wrong color and threw off the pattern at some point, and the list went on and on. She then handed it back to me and told me that she loves my progress with it and couldn't wait to see the finished product, but I told her that it was finished. She then looked down at it and said to me, "It is not done until it's perfect. You made several mistakes that you could easily go back and fix." And when she said this, I honestly was dumbfounded. I hate the way perfectionists try to force their quirk onto others. I made this blanket for her for free out of my own free time, and that's because, you know, I love her, and I told her that, but she said she knows that and that she loves me for it, but she said she wouldn't be able to use it because she would not be able to focus on anything but the mistakes. I said to her, whatever, and I took the blanket back and said that if she didn't want it, then I would keep it. She then looked surprised and said that she does want it, but she just wants my best work and not something I kind of phoned in. I told her that if she thinks me crocheting a whole blanket and making minimal errors is somehow me just kind of phoning it in, then I would rather just keep the blanket. Well, she is so upset with me and told me that I was acting ridiculous and that it wouldn't take me long to fix it. Now, if you knew anything about crochet, then you know that if I made an error on row 36 out of 1,115, then that is essentially starting over. Anyways, I come to all of you to know if I'm the jerk in this situation, because right now I'm still incredibly pissed. Okay, this is so unbelievably entitled, it really pisses me off. She seriously is getting a free blanket, looks at it and says, this is not up to my standards. You need to go back and fix your mistake right now. And it's like, no man, I'm gonna keep the blanket at this point. Like, what are you talking about? That is so stupid. And this is not some weird quirk about her being a perfectionist. She is just straight up a jerk. I don't think she's a good person, and the fact that she's trying to make you start all over, especially over like an alleged mistake, in my opinion says everything you would ever need to know about this lady. An entitled jerk blocks a petrol station while a long line of people are waiting to fill up their cars. But as he was sitting there laughing with his friend, clearly enjoying our misery, I decided to get some petty revenge by wasting his time in a way that I think he will never truly forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was a few years ago. I pulled into my local petrol station and all the pumps were in use. So I pulled up behind one of the pumps, waiting for the van using it to finish and move off. After quite a few minutes, the driver casually strolled out of the shop in no hurry, despite the queue that was building up, and then he just walked to his van. He could see that I and several other vehicles were queuing up to use the pumps. The van driver in the pump next to him was obviously a friend, and when that driver finished up, the two of them stood and had a chat. They were aware of us waiting and were clearly loving the fact that they were holding all of us up, even turning to laugh arrogantly at the guy waiting next to me who called to them to move away from the pumps. This went on for 5 minutes more until they got bored of their silly game and then finally drove off. Now this moron was a plasterer and had his name and phone number written all over his van, and at that point I had a thought, oh boy, I am super petty. So I made a note of all of his details. A few weeks later I called him up and said that I had bought a house in need of renovation and I needed a quote to board out and skim the entire house. And my god, he was too happy to quote for a big project, assuring me that he was great at his trade and that I could not find a better quote anywhere. We discussed his availability and he was keen to come and look at the job. So I gave him the address of a rundown house a few streets away from me that had recently sold at auction. He knew the property and he had driven past it a few times and noticed that it was up for auction. We then arranged for him to call the following day, and of course I wasn't wasn't there. He rang a few times and left a voicemail checking where I was, but eventually I called him back very apologetic, and I said that my husband had fallen off a ladder and I took him to the doctor to take care of him. Now he said okay and that he'll rearrange the visit. So we arranged another time a few days later, and when the next appointment came, I had 2 more messages from him clearly annoyed that I wasn't there again. So I called him back and I apologized, and I said I could totally understand his anger and waste of time. I then said, you know, this reminds me of the time I was sat at a petrol station a few weeks ago and some idiot and his mate stood there having a good old chat while laughing at the drivers waiting to use the pumps. Well, after I said that, I could hear a penny drop, and it was right then that I heard the raging and swearing started, which just sent me off roaring with laughter. I had made my point and it was fabulous. I then spent the next few weeks blocking various numbers, sending me awful text messages, but eventually he got bored of that. But in the end, and either way, I hope he learned that his actions will definitely have consequences. Wow, what a piece of garbage. That guy literally sat there and was like, oh yeah, let's just chat and block this entire gas station. It's like, dude, what are you doing? People are trying to get gas. Get out of the way. That is some really serious scumbag behavior, and the fact that he felt emboldened to do that says everything that you need to know about this guy. So honestly, I love the fact that you wasted his time, even if it was just for a little bit. He absolutely had this coming, especially if he thinks he can play stupid games and not expect to receive stupid rewards. A psycho tow truck company owner said that she would dump my car back into the ditch they helped me get out of, all because they were demanding I pay a $36 payment. And despite the fact that I said that my insurance would pay for it, while also having written proof that it would get paid, this psycho Karen decided that wasn't nearly enough, as she went to a level of crazy that I've truly never seen in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so due to some recent snow, my car slid off my driveway and got stuck in a ditch next to my house. I contacted Insurance Roadside Assistance, and they picked a random local tow truck company to wrench my car out of the ditch. Now, I carefully checked with insurance before the rescue to verify that it was not an emergency, and I verified that it was completely covered by insurance. In fact, my insurance sent me a written verification that it was covered. The tow truck driver arrived and got my car unstuck. After he was complete, I asked if he needed anything, and he said he needed to check on payments. I then told him that I had a written statement showing that it was supposed to be covered by insurance. Well, he got back in his truck and drove away, and so I assumed that everything was good, but unfortunately, it definitely wasn't. About 15 minutes later, I get a call from the tow company owner demanding that I pay $36 or they weren't going to release my car. Now, I was really confused because my car was parked in my driveway and the driver was long gone. So I said, well, my insurance says it's covered, so please send me an invoice and I can send that to them. Well, the owner then started screaming at me. She said, that is not how this works. You must pay the remainder or we aren't leaving. And I was like, ma'am, your driver is gone. She then responded just as angry. He's not supposed to do that. He will come back and block your driveway until you pay $36. You cheapskates make me sick. He will come back and put your car back in the ditch. Now at this point, I was kind of stunned and I laughed at her. And I said to her, sure, you can come back and put my car in the ditch, which made her so mad that she hung up on me. A little bit later, I get a text with an invoice showing I owed an additional $125 for a waiting fee. I then texted her back asking where the driver was, as I was waiting because my property was completely empty. She then claimed that GPS and the dash cam proved that he was in my driveway, but I responded by saying, well, he must be invisible because no one's here, and then she just stopped responding. Now fast forward and my insurance eventually agreed to pay the $36 balance. Now I've gotta say, I have never had a small business owner behave this way to me. I sent in bad reviews to all the sites I could find, and I did a complaint to the Better Business Bureau, because people like this truly are incredibly toxic. Good lord, I can't imagine having a small business like that, where you literally threaten the people that you're trying to work with. Like seriously, that is so weird and toxic, it's not even funny. She even tried to add on a waiting fee as if you did anything wrong. And it's like, lady, what are you talking about? I have it in writing that you guys are gonna get paid. So yeah, the way she acted was insane, and I just can't imagine ever treating a customer like this. Am I the jerk for refusing to fund my boyfriend's genius idea, as he believes he's about to invent a new color and he needs $4,000 so that he can make that happen? Because after I denied giving him that money, he said that I'm not only unsupportive and afraid of innovation, but also that I'm crushing his dream dreams of changing the world. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I've been dating my 29-year-old boyfriend for 3 years. And while he's always been a bit wacky, I usually find it kind of endearing. This time, however, he's really outdone himself. A few weeks ago, he told me he had a groundbreaking idea that would change humanity forever. Entertaining him, I asked him what it was, and his answer was that he was going to invent a new color. Before we go any further, it's important to note that we are both college graduates. I graduated in biochemistry last year, and my boyfriend in philosophy a few years before, which makes this all the wilder, I guess. I tried to gently point out that colors exist as part of the visible spectrum of light, so unless he was about to discover some new wavelength, this might not be possible in the first place. But he just waved me off, calling me close-minded and saying that he was enlightened in a way that you'll never be. At first, I just nodded and let him ramble about his supposed vision, but then he told me that he needed funding to start his research. Specifically, he wanted me to give him $4,000 so he could buy supplies, including advanced art tools and a lab coat, because apparently scientists wear them so it would make him feel smarter. And best of all, wait for it, he wants a trip to the desert because he thinks the pure sunlight will inspire him. Well, I told him absolutely not. I'm saving for grad school, and even if I weren't, I'm not dropping thousands of dollars on his whatever this is. He then got mad at me, saying I didn't believe in him or his potential to revolutionize human perception. He even accused me of being jealous that he had a world-changing idea and I didn't. It got really heated, and he ended up saying a lot of things about using my card as he knew the details anyways. For reference, he's been unemployed for a while now, while I've got a regular job. I ended up saying some things I do regret, but a lot of it was in retaliation. Now he's sulking and telling everyone that I'm unsupportive and afraid of innovation. His friends are backing him up, saying I should be encouraging his creativity instead of crushing his dreams. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Am I somehow in the wrong for not funding his quest to invent a new color? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your boyfriend's an idiot. I'm just gonna say that first and foremost. This guy wants to be like, oh yeah, this new color's gonna change the world. But it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Even if there is some new color, it's not gonna change anything. The average person, namely myself, would look at it and be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I would go back to being like, okay, how am I gonna make rent? It's like, dude, what are you on about? And the fact that he's trying to guilt trip you because you don't believe in his vision, it's like, seriously, if you're so inspired, then you can use that vision to get a job and earn that $4,000 yourself. Why on earth should your partner be responsible for your stupid ideas? Especially when they're so irrational, like going into the desert for inspiration. So no, you're not the jerk. It's obvious your boyfriend is having some kind of midlife crisis, and that, in my opinion, has absolutely nothing to do with you. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that her wedding plans are completely unrealistic? Because after I refused to give her $15,000, and after I called her out in front of the family, my parents say that I'm in the wrong. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister has always been the princess type. Ever since we were kids, she's talked about her dream wedding. She wanted a castle, a horse-drawn carriage, and the kind of dress that would make Disney jealous. I always thought that she would scale things down when the time came, but now she's engaged, and honestly, she's doubling down on the whole fairy tale thing. The wedding is planned for next summer, and she's going all out. She's booked a venue that's basically a small castle, has been talking about a custom dress that's over $10,000, as well as live entertainment and elaborate catering. When I asked her how she was planning to afford this, she casually said that she's relying on a little help from family to make it happen. And by family, she meant me. A couple of weeks ago, she sat me down and told me how much it would mean to her if I could help out. Then she asked for $15,000. I almost choked on my coffee. She knows I've been saving up for years to buy a house, and I'm finally getting close. I told her I couldn't give her that much, but could maybe help with a smaller amount, like maybe $2,000 at most. Well, she was really upset and said that wouldn't even cover the deposit for the castle venue. Things then got worse last weekend at a family dinner. She was going on and on about her plans, how the carriage is going to have flowers draped over it, how she's hiring a designer to do a once-in-a-lifetime dress. I don't know if it was the stress of hearing the price tags or just how casually she was talking about money she didn't have, but I finally snapped. I told her that her wedding plans were completely unrealistic unless she planned to go into massive debt or win the lottery. Well, she got really quiet and then started crying, and then she left the table. And at this point, my mom and dad were glaring at me. And after dinner, my mom told me I was way out of line. She said I should have kept my opinions to myself and that I crushed my sister's dream. Since then, my sister hasn't really been talking to me. My mom keeps calling me and saying that I should apologize, but I feel like I'm not wrong. Weddings are expensive, and if she can't afford this level of extravagance, isn't it better for her to realize that now instead of relying on others? I know I could have handled it better, but I feel like she put me in an impossible position. So So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your sister is seriously immature. For reference, the sister is 27 years old. So this is far beyond that age where it's like, okay, let's have a princess wedding. Like, does she not realize she just doesn't have the budget to take care of this? Even with a little help from family, it's just not gonna happen. Not to mention that she literally was like, okay, I need $15,000 from you, please and thank you. Like, what is going on? That's not okay. That's not a small amount. That's a huge amount of money. Like, $2,000 really would be like the most I would be willing to give, because what she's trying to get together is honestly insane. It's something out of somebody's like fever dream, and it's just not realistic. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to fund this, and for calling her out and being like, listen, you can't afford this, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is super spoiled and very entitled, and you do not deserve to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for canceling my best friend's appointment, all because she still owes me money from the last appointment she never paid me for? Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a friend who's 23 years old, let's call her Jane for the sake of the story, who owes me, a 22-year-old female, a lot of money. There are multiple reasons she owes me money, but the main reason is because she is yet to pay for a service I provided. For reference, I'm a hairstylist, and I took in my friend Jane for an emergency appointment. I usually use a booking software that takes down client card details, which gives me the option to charge the card if they refuse to pay after the service for no valid reason. Because this was a trusted friend, I took her in for an emergency hair service when she needed her hair done for her birthday, and I did not use my booking software because I assumed that my friend would pay me. I often ask for payment after the service, so when I did this, Jane said, "Oh, I thought it would be my birthday present," to which I made very clear during the appointment, as I let her know she'd get the friends and family discount at my salon, which she was thrilled about. I explained and she understood that I had to charge her for my services as it is my job. However, she gets paid tomorrow. Well, I forgave her as Jane is a very close friend of mine, and she told me that she would pay me back. Well, a week goes by and still I don't have a payment, so I messaged her asking about it. She says she can't do it right now, but she will do it real soon. This then goes on for a while, and eventually I forget about it as the service was not crazy expensive and it was just a root retouch. However, she's now asking for another emergency appointment, but I state that she has to book through my booking website. She then told me that it was urgent and that she cannot wait longer than 48 hours. And for reference, my website also does not let anyone book less than 48 hours in advance. Now, it's important to note that she has yet to pay me for my last service, so I refuse her, and it's caused a very heated debate in our friendship. She promises to pay me back after the appointment again, but I don't trust her, as she has a pile of debt to me now, and now to my business as well. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk for not letting her have another emergency appointment? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. For starters, this does seem like a lose-lose situation, where no matter what you're gonna do, it's gonna suck for either party. But in my opinion, I think you need to stick to your values and say, no, you need to pay me first before anything else. Especially for a friend like this. Like, she clearly was using you and was like, oh, I thought this was like a birthday present or something like that. Despite the fact that you saying, no, it's not, and you're getting a discount. And you know what? It's already hard enough for people to make a living doing something they love on their own. So for her to turn around and be like, oh, don't worry about it, I'll pay you back later when I get paid, and then not pay you ever, like, that is crazy, and I would be so upset if I was in your shoes. So in my opinion, no, you're not the jerk. Anyone who's upset about you not giving this emergency appointment clearly doesn't work for themselves, and they clearly don't respect you as a business person. Because what Jane did, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable, and you deserve to get paid way before she ever gets another appointment. An entitled jerk talks down to me as I'm cleaning his table for the restaurant they were eating at, as he called me a phrase that truly insulted me on a deep personal level. But after I demanded that he apologize to me right now, he decided to mock me further, forcing me to escalate in a way that he truly did not expect. And I'm now honestly so glad that I got those guys kicked out. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened last Saturday, and I'm still mentally replaying the interaction, so I decided to write it out to try and move my brain on from it. I'm a 42-year-old male, and I work as a server at a busy neighborhood bar with good food near a major sports arena in a top 3 United States city. A professional hockey game had just ended at around 10 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, and as expected, we got the third rush of the night within 30 minutes of the final whistle. The table nearest the door had opened up, and it being the only available table in the room, combined with the fact that our establishment does not generally need a host, so we don't have one, it was quickly beset upon. Now, as it was still covered in empty glassware and food debris, I rushed to clear it and clean the tabletop to make room for the people that would be sitting there. A group of 4 men in their mid to late 40s who had ordered drinks at the bar stood over as I cleaned it, and I said to them, just give me 1 second to clean this table for you guys. Well, the conversation that followed episode is the most ludicrously rude interaction I've ever had with a guest in my 29 years of the business. This guest laughed at his buddies and said, "Yeah, clean my table, loser." Although he didn't say loser and instead called me the B word. And by B word, I mean the common phrase used for female dog, if you know what I mean. Now at this point, I was finishing cleaning the table and I said to him, "Excuse me, do you want to rephrase that?" Well, this guy was still laughing. He looked at me and said, "Yeah, clean my effing table." And then he called me the B word again. Now I was finished cleaning and the guest was now seated. So I said to him, "Did you seriously just call me that twice within seconds of meeting me?" This jerk then said, "Yeah, man, it was just a joke." I responded by saying, calling someone that you don't know that name isn't a joke. That's not even remotely funny. The guest tried to say that it was all good, but I said to him, "No, it's not all good. Do you want to stay in this bar? Because if you do, I'm going to need an apology out of you. Am I clear?" Now this guy reacted quite strongly. He looked at me and said, "Whoa, are you serious right now?" But I responded and said, "Do I look like I'm joking? You are out of here if I don't get a sincere apology out of you this second." This guy then responded by saying, "Wow, man, I was laughing the whole time. It was clearly a joke. You've got to be effing kidding me." But I said to him, "Well, the joke is that you called the grown man clearing your table the B word in front of all of your buddies not once but twice. Now look me in the eyes and apologize right now." At this point, this guy's leaning forward and is making the most sarcastic beg for forgiveness hands I've ever seen in my life. And then he looked at me and said, "I'm so effing sorry." And you could clearly tell he was mocking me. At this point, I looked over to the friend who was still present and I asked them, "Is this your friend? Do you support this kind of crap?" This guy, who is clearly uncomfortable at this point, says, "Hey, I just met him tonight, but he seems like an okay guy." Now, I'm a fairly new employee who has had some awkward interactions with a very small number of guests that turned out to be longtime regulars. Our regulars, of whom there are hundreds going back 15 years, are extremely protective of this bar, which is an amazingly warm and welcoming neighborhood joint with a truly beautiful family vibe that can sometimes get a bit rambunctious. So you can say I'm a bit on eggshells about my job security, and I let that fear of losing what is an amazing job stop me from just throwing these jerks out myself, for the sole fear that they might have the owners on speed dial and be able to manipulate the facts against me. I went ahead and I reported my interaction to management, stating that I thought I would be able to handle them myself going forward. Well, management promptly ejected them from the building, which I'm grateful for as my superior had my back. These jerks tried to stop me to offer a proper sincere apology, which was obviously way too late by that point. I got over it and I finished the shift, but you know what really sucks? It's days later and I can't help but feel awful for probably appearing to them that I had to go get someone else to kick them out. So to the guys who treated me like that, you absolutely are the worst. If I had worked here for longer than 6 months, I would have been hustling your butt out the door myself without ever having a single thought about it. Wow, this is honestly so unbelievably toxic. These guys had massive guts to sit there and be like, "Yeah, clean my table, you idiot." I mean, what were they thinking? Like, that is so rude. If you were friends with these people, that would be way different. But you literally have only just met them and it's like, okay, this is an awful first impression. So sure, you had to get somebody else to kick him out, but from the sounds of it, it seems like there's a lot of things that you don't know about that restaurant, because it sounds like this is one of those like legacy restaurants and you can't just kick out anyone willy-nilly. Like, for all you know, that could have been like the owner's son and all of his friends or something like that. So truly, I think getting somebody to help you out and being like, "No, these people suck and they have to go," that really was like the best decision, because these guys were absolutely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my brother no to co-signing for a car? Because I am genuinely worried he will ruin my credit just like he's ruined his own. Because right now, even after I told him that I wouldn't help him out, he's saying that I'm an awful sibling, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, so I recently reviewed a text message from my older brother, simply stating if I had good credit or not. When I replied to him and answered that I do, he then proceeded to ask me to be a co-signer on a car, and this was another Mercedes that he wanted to get. He has wasted so much money on different cars over the years and has put himself into debt because of it, so much so that he had to file for bankruptcy. He has a child now and his current Mercedes is too small to be a dad car, so he wants to upgrade to another one. Now, as much as I want to be a good sister and try and help him out, I told him no, as his financial track record is concerning. Now, let me tell you, he's got a great job and makes good money. He's in the trades, and I'm a teacher and I make far less money than him, but I'm good with my finances and I still have student loans and everything else. When I told him no, he got aggravated and has been pretty much annoyed with me ever since then, saying it's awful of me to not help him out when I have a good credit score. But the fact of the matter is, I'm scared that he will ruin it. I have my own bills to pay. I need to keep my credit up to par for when I'm ready to buy property since I've been saving to do so. And when I explained this to him, and the fact that I do have so many other monthly bills that I pay, on top of having to pay off student debt, he still couldn't comprehend my reasoning and sort of just scoffed it off. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling him no for my own financial safety? Because right now I'm honestly incredibly annoyed. No, you're not the jerk here. This is so weird. This guy ruined his credit, so now he's going to anybody with a pulse and he's just like, okay, I need this new Mercedes. Please sign this car off. And the fact that he's trying to like guilt trip you and be like, wow, that's really awful that you're not doing this for me. Like, no, of course I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. You've worked hard to build your credit up. And the fact that this guy wants to ruin it, and yes, he is going to ruin it, in my opinion, shows how selfish he really is. So no, you are not the jerk here. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. My entire office has been dealing with a mysterious food thief, as all of our food and leftovers in the company fridge has been constantly going missing every single week. So I decided to get some petty revenge by not only exposing exactly who was stealing everybody else's food, but once caught, this thief ended up quitting just a few months later, as the shame of his crime simply could not be handled. Here's what happened. Okay, so my office has a classic problem: the mysterious food thief. Over a period of a few weeks last year, my food and that of some of my other coworkers had been disappearing from the fridge. I'm not talking about accidental oops, I thought it was mine situations. We're talking whole donuts, sandwiches, and even my leftovers have been vanishing. After losing one too many things, I decided to take matters into my own hands with a harmless but effective petty revenge plan. I bought a jelly-filled donut, the kind that's impossible to resist, but also I doctored it up just a little bit. Using a syringe, I carefully injected it with a good amount of bright blue food coloring. Not enough to alter the taste, but enough to make a statement. After that, I left the baked donut in the fridge and then I waited. Well, sure enough, by the afternoon, the donut was gone, and I didn't have to wait long for the thief to reveal themselves. One of my coworkers showed up to a meeting with a suspiciously blue tongue, stained lips, and a big blue smudge on his hand. He tried to act casual, but the evidence was glaring. Now, the best part is that the whole office noticed. People started whispering, and the culprit eventually tried to play it off as a weird reaction to candy, but nobody bought it when everybody realized he was the thief. Well, the thief then quit after a couple of months because no one would talk to him anymore. And I'm happy to say that even though I didn't have to confront him directly, I now get to finally enjoy my donuts in peace. Oh my gosh, I can't stand people who do this. Seriously, if you have an office and you have some kind of fridge that people put their stuff in, it's a rule of thumb that you don't touch anyone else's crap. Like, this is so annoying, it's not even funny. The fact that this guy did this and felt emboldened to do so, in my opinion, says everything you need to know about his character. Like, it is so easy not to steal other people's food. All you have to do is bring your own stuff and then leave it as it is. So truly, I love the way you handle this, and I love the fact that you exposed this guy to everybody in the office. And the fact that he quit all because of the repercussions of this, in my opinion, makes this whole situation even better. Am I the jerk for telling my sister not to even bother coming to my wedding after she said she was offended by the way she wasn't as involved as she would like to be? Because right now I'm honestly still frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 24-year-old male and I excluded my 28-year-old sister from my wedding, but not my other sister who's 26, and this honestly has upset my entire family. Now, I'm getting married to a really wonderful man who we will call Max for the sake of the story, and this is all happening in the summer, but my sister will not be in my wedding. Here's exactly what's going on. Now, I have two sisters who we will call Macy and Penny. We grew up close, but with no brothers, I felt excluded. My sisters would go on girls' trips and I wasn't invited. My father isn't in the picture, so mostly my mom would leave me with my grandma. And I think that sisters and brothers are very different, because while Penny and Macy would fight, they would always make up. Penny is a lesbian, and as a gay man, we've bonded more as adults. And overall, I love both my sisters even if the relationships are painful. About 7 years ago, Macy married her fiance, who we will call Michael. Penny was her maid of honor, and Michael asked me to be his groomsman. Her wedding party included our female cousin, but also Penny's partner, who we will call Joanne. Now, Max and I were together, but he was not a part of the wedding. I barely knew Michael, and all of his groomsmen were strangers. I told my sister that I would rather support her on her wedding day, but she said that isn't the way things are done. Now, she was right, but I saw no reason why it needed to be gendered, because I really should have just stood with my family. But she was the bride, so I didn't bother about it again. Now, I was excluded from everything leading up to the wedding. I missed the bridal parties, the dress selection, and I missed the bachelorette activities. Not to mention the fact that on that day, I had to leave my house and get ready at her fiance's hotel because she didn't want any men around while she was getting ready. 2 years later, Penny married Joanne, and of course, Macy was the maid of honor, but I also got to be the bride's man and was with her every step of the way, and partners were excluded on both sides. Before the wedding, Macy kept making snide remarks about how I didn't belong there. There was no bachelor parties, but I think that Macy thought without a groomsman shouldn't be in the wedding. But I was invited to Penny's bachelorette party, much to Macy's chagrin. Now, Max and I are getting married, and we weren't going to have a wedding party, but Max insisted because he's close to his brother, who we will call Marshall. And when I made Penny my maid of honor, Macy was offended when I told her that she was going to stand with Max and Marshall because my best friend, who we will call Cole, is also going to be in it. She was furious. Macy said she needed to be there for her baby brother's big day, and she felt slighted. But I told her that if I had to stand with strangers, then she had to. Besides, we needed even numbers. Well, my mother took her side when she complained, and even my grandmother called me spiteful. Well, in a fit of rage, I shouted that if Macy had a problem, then she didn't need to show up to my wedding. Now, should I relent and let her stand with me? I feel like this is a total double standard, because when Macy was married, the answer was, well, it's her wedding. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, maybe I love chaos, but trust me, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. It really seems like Macy wants to treat you like garbage and be like, well, it's my wedding, I get to decide who does stuff and who doesn't. But then when that same kind of strategy is brought against her, suddenly this is some kind of massive insult. It's like, seriously, this is so stupid it's not even funny, because Macy started this entire thing. Because if Macy didn't do anything wrong with having her wedding the exact way that she wanted, then guess what? You can claim the same thing. And from the sounds of it, Macy sounds like that one sibling that just honestly is really not that nice. She is clearly at odds with you and treats you way different than Penny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Macy dug her own grave the second she treated you weirdly, and in my opinion, I think it's about time that you return the favor. An entitled jerk gets on my laptop after I step away to use the bathroom, but when I got back and confronted him, demanding that he get away from my stuff, he claimed that he was just looking for games in my absence. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's guts to pull something like that. Here's what happened. So a little over a decade ago, I had frequently gone to this one place to hang out with some friends each week. One time, I brought my personal laptop to do some story writing, and this was an outdated model, so I didn't really have any games on it, which is not a problem. I only used it for writing, emails, and web browsing, and I used my desktop at home for gaming and all this other stuff. Now, at some point, I got up to use the restroom, and when I got back, I saw that there was some guy sitting at my laptop and using it as if he owned it, and this resulted in the following interaction. I look at him and I say, "What do you think you're doing?" This guy looked at me and said, "Oh, I just wanted to play some games." But I responded by saying, "No, get off my laptop." He then looked at me in the most childish way possible and said, "You're supposed to say please." But at this point, I was yelling. I said, "No, that laptop is mine. You cannot use it." He then begrudgingly gets up and steps away, and then actually whines about there not being any games on it. Now, this place was a center for people with autism, and the staff wouldn't let anyone in unless they were registered there. It was a mixed age setting with a group of teenagers and a group of adults, and this guy just so happened to be in the teenagers group. But regardless, I'm glad I came back when I did, because who knows what he could have done to my laptop if I wasn't around. Wow, that is crazy to me. This is like all of my worst nightmares summed up in one situation. You step away to go to the bathroom, you leave your stuff in a spot that you thought nobody's gonna touch, and then suddenly this guy's over there and he's trying to poke around on your laptop. Like, seriously, what's going on right now? This is not normal behavior. And the fact that he's trying to be like, "Oh, you're supposed to say please." It's like, dude, get away from my crap. What are you doing? This doesn't belong to you and I don't want you touching it. So good for you for stepping up and getting this guy away from your property, because what he was trying to do, in my opinion, was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for not siding with my wife when our daughter got hurt by stepping on Lego? Because right now, I feel that she's being incredibly immature and very self-absorbed. But at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Last night, my daughter was playing with Legos before bedtime in the living room. And this morning, when our daughter woke up, she walked into the living room rug and suddenly began crying out, hopping on one foot. It was still early morning and we were a bit groggy. Our daughter then hopped to her mom looking for comfort. Instead of consoling her, my wife kept insisting that she wasn't hurt, saying that she just tripped on the rug. But our daughter kept saying that she stepped on something, but my wife kept disregarding it. Now, I was quiet about the situation until this point where I stood up for our daughter and said that I think she stepped on something because she was playing with Legos last night and the rug is thick. Well, I looked at our daughter's foot and it was bleeding. So I cleaned it up and I put a band-aid on it. I then put on a funny video of people stepping on Legos to cheer our kid up and show her that it happens to other people too. After this, my wife storms upstairs angrily, and I wait a while to see if she's gonna come back, but she doesn't. I decide to put our daughter in the tub and then go check on my wife. When I check on my wife, I can see that she's brooding crying and very angry. I asked her what's wrong, but she just denied that anything was wrong. I then asked her why she stormed upstairs if nothing is wrong, and she then proceeded to say that we were ganging up on her. She said I provoked our daughter to go against her, but I told her all I was doing was acknowledging that our daughter was hurt when she was denying it. She then said that I should have never come upstairs and make her angry, but I told her she was acting childish, and the situation was about helping our daughter and not about her. We then began arguing, and our daughter was now watching. Noticing this, I shut down the argument and I took our daughter back to the bathroom to continue her bath and to console her. I now feel like I'm in the doghouse for no reason. I understand my wife may feel like it's us against her and probably feels isolated, but I personally feel in this situation, she is being immature and self-absorbed. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, your wife is being super weird. Is she seriously looking at your daughter and trying to be like, well, you didn't actually hurt yourself, you just tripped on the rug. Meanwhile, her foot's bleeding and she's crying. Like, clearly there's something wrong here. Like, why would you not make that connection? And just because you clearly pointed it out and said, oh, it's totally fine, you just stepped on a Lego, and you tried to like make it better, doesn't mean that you're somehow ganging up on your wife. Like, that is such a crazy overreaction. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here. Your wife is being super obnoxious, and in my opinion, that is incredibly annoying. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I will be putting him in a nursing home and that I hope he passes away there alone and afraid? Because after the way he treated me recently, I'm honestly still incredibly upset and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I came out to my dad and he exploded on me. And it made me bring up all the terrible things that he did to me. And at the end of it, I told him that I put him in a nursing home where I hoped he would pass away alone. Now, you might be wondering, how do we get here? Well, for starters, I'm a 22-year-old female and I've been dating a woman for about 5 years now. Despite my hesitation, I told my father, who's 61 years old, because I still have a semblance of affection for him and I will be buying a ring very soon. Well, he reacted as expected and went on a rant about how terrible my sexuality was and how I was faking it just to piss him off. Now, I'm not here to argue about who I'm attracted to and why, but it came around to the point where I told him I would bring my girlfriend just to try and prove it. But that's when he said something along the lines of, if you show up, I'll beat both of you. To which I said, okay, well, I'll return the favor. He then got really offended, extremely angry as per usual, and went on a rant about how disrespectful I was, and telling me that he deserved my respect as my father. Well, when he said this triggered some very ugly memories for me. I can't quite go into detail, but he's always been an angry person. Scary one moment, then love bombing the next. All of my teenage years, my sister and I put up with him with the hope that he'd change back to my loving childhood father. But after 13 marriages, 12 children, and the only 2 kids he raises are taught to fear him, it clearly didn't work. At this point, I was really tired, so I told him I didn't want him to attend any more of my events, including walking me down the aisle one day. I then told him that he was a terrible person and didn't deserve the love of a child, and that I wish he had left us like the other 10 kids. That I hoped he would pass away sad and alone in a nursing home. My mother then called a couple of times, asking me to apologize because he lost his daughter and he was mourning me, and that I shouldn't have said what I said. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that went down? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, normally I would be like, listen, you can try and like make things better, or at least try to see where he's coming from. But for this guy, honestly, I just don't think that's the case. This guy literally said, if you come around here, I'm gonna beat up both of you. And it's like, dude, I'm trying to have some kind of relationship with you. I'm trying to have some kind of like daughter-father thing going on here. And the second you say you're gonna fight your daughter and her girlfriend, like that's the moment where it's like, okay, this is absolutely not okay. But it's also incredibly ironic that in that same breath, he tries to sit there and be like, well, I'm the father, I need respect. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? What kind of respect are you expecting from anyone around you when you treat your own family like garbage, attacking your kid because they came out to you? Like, I know if I was the dad in this situation, I would be honored to have that kind of information. Because let's be honest, I know it's 2025, but it's still very hard for people to come out. Some parents are not understanding, so it can leave kids of these parents completely terrified that they're going to be rejected. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. So this guy has no right to claim any kind of like respect all because he's your father, if he himself can't even give you the baseline level of respect that's needed to try and claim that he's your father in the first place. So no, you're not the jerk at all. This guy sucks, and the fact that your mom's taking his side also means, in my opinion, that she sucks too, because you did not deserve to be treated that way, and he is absolutely 100% at fault. An entitled older couple freak out when their card doesn't work at my cash register, claiming that it's all because I don't know how to do my job instead of some kind of problem that they caused themselves. Things got so bad that the man of that couple actually threw a coffee cup at me in a fit of rage, as he simply couldn't understand why I couldn't do my job. And I've honestly never been more angry with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, this is a story from when I worked at a very popular theme park in Florida, and this incident is one that almost made me quit. I was working as the cashier at a bakery store area for the resort I worked at. It was really busy and my line was very long. I was a fast cashier, so I was moving through the guests rather quickly. I hear an older man and woman arguing with each other as they come up through my line, but I just mind my business and I ring up their things. The man then says with an attitude that he needs a cup for coffee. So I grab one, I sit it on the counter, and I ring it up with the rest of their things. I tell them their total and they pull out their room card to pay. Now, room cards for reference were connected to their guest IDs, and guests could also connect a debit or credit card to them to try and make things easier during their vacation. So I go through the process of charging the card, but the computer won't read it, and I do it multiple times, but still I get nothing. The older woman then says, "This is the second card that's doing this." The older man responds by saying, "Well, what am I supposed to do? She's the one that doesn't know what she's doing," and he's literally referring to me. I look at him and I say, "Sir, do you have the debit or credit card associated with the room card with you? I could just use that instead of this." At this point, the old man then starts screaming at me. He says to me, "If I had that, I wouldn't have handed you the room key. Why can't you do your job?" Now at this point, I'm trying to calm down and remain not ignorant. A nice guest behind the man chimes in and says to the older gentleman that if it's happened 2 times already, it's probably because they're putting it next to their cell phone or something else that is demagnetizing it because it happened to them as well. This old jerk then looks at this nicer young man and says, "Who asked you?" The young man raises his hand and says sorry sarcastically, while other guests look at the older couple like they're nuts and look at me with sympathy. I look at him and I say, "Sir, ma'am, do you have any other form of payment?" And at this point, the man throws the stuff they had angrily on the counter, and his wife follows up by knocking the cup on the ground. At this point, some people leave the line, and the welcome desk lady some feet behind me stare on in bewilderment. The older man then starts screaming, "I don't even want this crap anymore. All I wanted was a coffee." Now me, wanting them to just leave my line and get off my nerves, I say to them, "Here, I'll give you the coffee for free." I hand him another cup, which he attempts to snatch out of my hand, causing this one to also drop to the ground. And this was the moment that he did something to me that honestly blew my mind. He picks it up and angrily throws it at me. He screams out, "I need another one." And at this point, my mind was blown. Guys, I was shaking. What I'm feeling at that moment wasn't rage, but rather it was wrath. I'm brown, but my face and neck were red. I then understood why God didn't give humans superpowers, because I would have reduced that entire place to ashes, starting with that older couple. Everything would have gone up in flames. I then grabbed another cup and I sat it on the counter. Before handing it to the man, I calmly spoke to him. I said, "Sir, instead of acting like this, all you had to do was ask. You see that desk behind me? They can print you a new card if you need it." Him and his wife seemed to deflate, but said nothing as I handed him the cup. I then asked them to leave my line and they walked away. The nice man and his woman looked at me with pity, and the woman said she was sorry that I had to go through that. I managed to ring up their things, but I couldn't continue. So I called my manager on the phone that was next to the cash register. She answered and instantly knew by my voice that something was wrong. I then told her that I needed a break and that I couldn't be there right now. She said okay and said she was on her way, and then a minute later told me to take a breather. I couldn't even make it to the worker break room bathroom before the tears started, so I ran to the guest bathroom into a stall and I cried there. I cried not because I was sad, but because I was angry and had to suppress it. I was boiling over like a pot of water on the inside. Throughout that week, no matter where I saw that man and his wife, I gave them the nastiest stink eye I could possibly muster. Suddenly, they were super nice to everyone else, but refused to make eye contact with me longer than a few seconds. And although they never apologized for the way they treated me, they did, however, look incredibly guilty anytime they saw me. Okay, I resonate with this so much because this captures so beautifully what it's like to be in customer service. Not only do you get to deal with people all the time who treat you like garbage, but also you have other people trying to give their sympathy to you for the way that you got treated. Like, I'm not blaming the other couple for being like, "Wow, I'm so sorry you got treated like that." But sometimes, honestly, it really feels like when you're in customer service, whether that's a cashier or a server or something like that, you become this animal in a cage that people can either treat really nicely or treat like garbage depending on who it is. And it's like, yes, the man and woman of this story are absolute pieces of garbage, but also being told, "I'm so sorry you have to deal with that," in my opinion, is super condescending. I know they meant well, but for me, I would still be super upset because there's nothing anybody can do about this. They can't stop them from acting like that, and I also, in some cases, can't stop them from doing that either. Like, just look at the way the original poster reacted here. They had to not only give them a free cup cup of coffee, but they had to be nice about this instead of being like, why are you talking to me like that? Because they knew for a fact they would lose their job. If I had $1 for every time I wanted to tell off a patient or a customer or any other field that I've worked in, where you're like a forward-facing member of the company, I would have so much money it's not even funny. And I think anybody who's worked customer service would understand where I'm coming from there. And I also understand them running to the bathroom and crying because I've been there as well. I'm not sad or scared about the way they talk to me, but instead I'm so angry that I have no control over the situation. And this for me is why having a good manager is so important in these kind of jobs. Because any manager who's worth their weight in salt would literally tell you like, okay, you can tell them off and tell them to get lost. You can deny service, and yes, you can tell them to leave. But if they had a different manager who was not compassionate about your situation, they could easily side with these pieces of crap that treated you like garbage. And by the way, they tossed their items at you in a fit of rage, all because they screwed up their stupid card. Like, that's not your fault. That's nobody's fault but theirs. This story hits so many layers deep for me. I love it so much because honestly, it really captures what it's like to be in customer service. Because truly, especially nowadays, these kinds of interactions happen way more than people might realize. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I got fired several years ago right before Thanksgiving, leaving me in such a pinch that it honestly ruined so much of my life. So I decided to get some petty revenge by ensuring that their online presence for this company would be littered with negative reviews that they could never escape from. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, this happened at an old company and job of mine. For reference, they messed me over so bad and they really did me dirty. They fired me for no reason, but the manager in charge felt threatened by me. I truly was a solid employee, and I had a hunger to grow, learn, and overwork myself. This was a while back. My managers starting off were great, but the last one was an external hire and couldn't answer a phone call, let alone should be a manager in the first place. He is too concerned about who he can bang and make sure that he only hires ones within a certain criteria that is completely inappropriate. Well, the company has a 2.6 rating on Indeed, and constantly there are negative reviews and a few positive reviews. I would have a positive review too if I wasn't working under a dirtbag for half my time there. Anyway, since that time, I go back and I make sure to thumbs up all the negative reviews as they come in. And I'm doing this so no one else considers working with them or to encourage that the negative reviews are in fact true to how they are. Now, it's stupid and petty, but honestly, I don't care. I would celebrate if that company burns down to the ground. They fired me days before Thanksgiving. You know, a single mother who had the top performance and saved the company millions of dollars. Yes, that's right, millions of dollars. So in the end, they were just another crooked corporation system, and I'm honestly so glad I'm away from them, and I truly pray for their downfall. Oh man, I've been there 100%. You leave a job that treated you like crap, and so you decide, okay, let's make their online presence suck. And sure, I've thought about doing this in some kind of way, where I make their online presence look like garbage or something like that, but it seems like you decided, oh no, I'm gonna do it. And you started like really making sure that people saw these negative reviews. And I don't totally think that's petty, like it really does seem like these people suck, and people need to know exactly what they're getting into. So the fact that they have a 2.6 rating on Indeed, and they really are just not having a good time on that regard, in my opinion, will do wonders for this company and making sure that people avoid them. Because I don't know about you, but if I see a 2.6 out of 5 rating on some kind of website, then I, as the customer or even a potential hire, would be like, wait a second, why do they suck so much? And then I would immediately go to the reviews and be like, wait a second, why do these people have such bad ratings? Thus completing the cycle that the original poster wanted to happen. So yeah, I think what you're doing is well deserved, because from the sounds of it, these people absolutely deserve the trouble. My idiotic father is convinced that Donald Trump invited him specifically to come to his inauguration. And right now, I'm worried that he's fallen for a scam, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was visiting my parents this weekend. They live out of state, so I don't see them often, but my mom had just gotten out of the hospital. While I was there, I had one of the most frustrating conversations I've ever had with my father. I said to him, remember, never give any money to people who call or email you. The scammers are getting really advanced, and people who think they're prepared for this somehow still fall for it. They especially target older people. My father then said, oh, I know. I would never do that. We don't fall for scammers. So I respond and say, well, that's good. Just letting you know they've escalated things and gotten really good at convincing people that they are legit. They spoof numbers, they buy your info online, and they try to make you believe them. Now, my dad, who's slightly irritated by my insistence, said to me, I know, I got it. We use Wells Fargo because they have really good security against that stuff, and they'll give you your money back, because most scams attack your bank account. At this point, I looked at him and I said, sure, I guess, but if you make a payment it through your bank, then maybe that could help, but there's no guarantee. But my father kept saying that he knew what he was talking about and that apparently he coaches other older people about it. So I looked at him and I said, okay, I'm just making sure that you're aware of this, because most of the time they don't attack your bank account. They convince you to withdraw cash and put it on a gift card or Bitcoin and then give them the information. Then the money's gone and nobody can help you get it back. But even with my warning, my father kept saying, I know, I would never fall for that. And I just said, okay, that's good. Well, not even a few minutes later, my dad responded in a way that honestly was so weird. He said to me, you know, if your mom didn't get sick, I would have been flying to Washington today for the inauguration tomorrow. I then look up at him pretending to be interested and I say, oh really? Well, that's cool, I guess. He said to me, yeah, I donated some money to Trump, so he sends me stuff in the mail. It was kind of a lot, but not really that much, but it was a good amount. So yeah, basically Trump sent me an invite to the inauguration. He was going to send his private jet to pick me up and fly me to Washington and put me in a hotel with all expenses paid. Now at this point, he was smiling and I was waiting for him to say, oh, I'm just kidding, but he didn't. And it was right then that I realized he was serious. I looked at him and I said, well, it sounds like a scam to me, but my dad responded by saying, no, it's real. Trump's been sending me stuff all the time in the mail ever since I donated. He invited me specifically. After that, I just changed the topic because I didn't want to argue. It is so wild to think that my dad actually believed all of this, especially after insisting that he would never fall for a scam. Sadly though, I wouldn't be surprised if he falls for a Trump-related scam down the road, because from the looks of it, he doesn't seem like the brightest apple in the bunch. Oh my gosh, that is so weird. Seriously, how can you fall for something like that? The second any politician, regardless of who it is or what side of the aisle they're on, sends me something in the mail asking for a specific donation, like that for me is a giant red flag, and I would be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's crazy. Because seriously, dude, think about it. Does this guy really think that the president is going to invite him specifically? You know, someone who he doesn't know and is just some regular ordinary citizen? Like, that's so dumb and so stupid. Like, what is he thinking? Like, no one actually believes that, right? If anything, this is like a scammer's paradise, where they get free money, probably like a couple $100s from the person, and then they just keep sending him stuff trying to bait more money out of them. So yeah, your dad is completely wrong, and obviously he fell for something that he didn't expect. And hopefully for the sake of you and your family, this doesn't happen to him again anytime soon. My daughter is incredibly entitled, as she constantly treats me and my wife like garbage, literally blaming us for all of her problems and refusing to take accountability for anything that she does. And at this point, I'm honestly so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I know this is a long post, but this all involves my daughter, and the entitlement she shows is honestly just so astounding. It all started when she was young. She never has been able to accept responsibility for her actions, and even if she wasn't directly involved, she would ignore her role in the events. For example, she had a friend sleep over, and they played Ding Dong Ditch on our neighbor who lives next door. And of course, it was all her friend's idea, and all of her friend's fault and not hers. My wife and I were both telling her, but wait a second, you were there, you participated in it. My words included were to say, if you're going to do that, go to another neighborhood where nobody knows us. Also, as a child, she would often, as she described it, accidentally hurt her younger sister. We would want her to apologize and say she was sorry, but she would respond by saying, I don't feel sorry, and I won't even say it if I don't feel sorry. We tried to explain how, as an adult, we often say that as an acknowledgement of an event, but also as an acceptance of fault. For example, if you bump into a cart at a supermarket, you say sorry as an immediate response. But even with that example, she still wouldn't do it. She's also a quitter. Every time something gets hard, she wants to quit. We enrolled her in karate, and every new belt level was another challenge. New skills to learn, new techniques to master, new forms to learn. I mean, she would be all excited about graduating, but then would want to quit a few classes into the new belt, all because it was too hard. We would explain that this is why you go, so you learn to do them and get better. We would offer to video the instructor so that we could practice at home, but that was not good enough. But eventually she quit at advanced brown belt. Then came gymnastics. You know, the BMW car payment a month, plus competition fees, uniforms, travel, and hotels. She would only eat chips and candy, and I would bring her cut up apples, but she just refused to eat it. Any healthier snacks she would just decline. She wanted us to spend money on the snack machine for more candy or chips. I tried to have a discussion about how much she's working out, like maybe 4 hours, 3 to 4 times a week, and then she would accuse me of calling her fat. But I never said that. She would then say, well, you said I needed to go on a diet. And it's like, no, I said you need a healthier diet with proteins and healthier food to rebuild your body. She wanted me to watch her at practice, and honestly, I simply couldn't. I was too enraged. Her behavior was horrible in the gym, and once again, it wasn't her fault. Was she climbing the door to look out the window? Well, apparently everyone else was doing it. Was she just standing on the balance beam and not doing anything? Well, apparently she was waiting for them to watch her. And it's like, trust me, honey, they are watching you. They're watching you stand there and not practice. If you practice, they are more likely to come by and offer some help. If you are just standing there, then they will pay more attention to those who are doing something. She would also say stuff like, oh, they just don't like me. Or my favorite, well, why can't I just have fun? Well, eventually she gets her license and we borrow against our retirement to get her a car. And trust me, this is nothing fancy, but it's hers to use. And if we ask her to help clear the driveway, well, apparently she'll just say, well, this is not my house. We then find out her friend gets her permit, so we have a talk about how no one else is to drive that car. It is in my wife's name, and my daughter is not legally allowed to supervise an unlicensed driver anyways. But also, she's the only one allowed to drive that vehicle. Well, fast forward, and she then lets a 14-year-old who she knew didn't have a license or a permit drive the car. And guess what? He totaled it. They tried to cover it up by switching seats, despite the fact that there were witnesses. Then they lied to the cops about it. But again, it's not her fault. He told her that he knew how to drive. And let's not even begin to mention the vapes. She drops out of high school because I'll never use any of that stuff in real life. We then use her college money to, yet again, help her get another car, which she had for a few months and sold it back to the dealer at a huge loss. Also that she can move states away to move in with her boyfriend. Thousands of dollars gone. And she has none of it left after about 4 months. And now she's also back home. Because what happened between them is between them. Another time is when we were meeting up at a family member's house for football. Prior to that meeting, they stopped for dinner at a restaurant and picked me up in order to go. It was also sitting on the back seat next to her as we pulled up. Now, I had prior obligations, so I didn't attend dinner, but we all had arrived at the same time. I asked her to please grab my food, but she said to me, "You've got arms, go get it yourself." And I was like, seriously? It's right next to you. You could just grab it. But she then looked at me and said, "Why are you yelling at me?" Even though I wasn't yelling. I responded back by saying, well, why can't you just grab my food? Why are you yelling? And this went back and forth. My wife then had a talk with her and told her basically that she was being ridiculous and unreasonable. I'm the only person she ever treats this way, and I'm owed an apology. Well, as you can probably guess, I never got one. When we got home, I told her how upset I was by her lack of a simple act of kindness and to never ask me for another favor, because trust me, I won't do it. Don't ask me for help ever again. Well, at Christmas, she mentioned how she recognizes that she's a reason our communication isn't the greatest, which literally is the first time she's accepted responsibility, but still not given an apology. I then asked if she's ever been made to feel like she was less than a family member or made to feel like she was adopted, and to that she said no. Well, fast forward to now, and I help her to the doctor and she texts me and says, "Can we stop for pancakes?" And this is while she's back waiting for the doctor. I then text back and I say, "We can stop somewhere and you can buy pancakes, whether it's McDonald's or whatever." But her reply was to say, "Okay, well, never mind." But it's like, okay, I guess I'm the jerk here. On the way home, she tells me that she has a prescription that she needs to get picked up. Now, I don't remember how it came up, but she finally admits that she doesn't have her wallet. She has no way to pay for it, and she only has $35 in her account. And at this point, she's 18 years old. Now, does she want me to swing by the house to go get it? Well, no, of course not. She wants me to pay for it. I tell her that this is part of being an adult and being responsible. I then tell her about a company that can possibly give discounts that they might offer, and then I include my own personal experience with saving over $200 getting a prescription filled this way. But all I get is a thumbs up. But now she's talking to me because I'm apparently rude and disrespectful. And trust me, I know I will never win Father of the Year with my daughter. I love her for being my child, but I'm honestly just completely emotionally spent. Okay, I think your daughter is super spoiled and super rotten, and I think you have every right to be upset. And I want to start off with that because I think we have a bigger problem here. You both, and I mean both you and your wife, consistently cave in to any of her demands. It's like you get upset about what she's doing, and then you're like, okay, I guess we'll pay for it. Like seriously, you're a part of the problem. You are literally enabling this behavior in a weird way. For example, when she ding-dong ditched the neighbor, instead of saying, "Oh my god, don't ever do that again, you're grounded," you said, "Well, why don't you go to another neighborhood where nobody knows us?" You didn't actively condone the activity. Instead, you're like, "Oh yeah, this is fine. Do it somewhere else where we don't know people." It's like, what are you doing? That is so stupid. Why would you encourage this behavior from somebody who clearly is irresponsible? And I can get past the whole sports situation where she's like doing gymnastics or karate. I mean, that's typical kid stuff. Kids quit stuff all the time, so that doesn't bother me. But the second you describe that car incident where one of her friends totaled the car and then she tried to be like, "Well, it's not my fault," and even lie to the police, that would have been the final straw for me. Because there is no way on planet Earth she would ever be welcome back in my house. She would be gone forever. And I'm talking when she hits 18 years old, she's got to find some place to live. Like that is so unbelievably crazy because this is so much further than some like angsty teenager teenager. Quite literally, anything else would be acceptable except for this. This crosses so many boundaries for me, it's not even funny. But what do you do in this situation? You take from her college fund and say, okay, we'll get you another car. But then she turns around and sells it again. Like, what is going on right now? This is not normal behavior. You should not be putting up with this, and I can't believe that you are. So yes, your daughter is super entitled, but you are also super blind because you are literally enabling this behavior from the very beginning. And if you want any kind of serious change to happen, then in my opinion, the change has to start with you. An entitled jerk goes on the wrong way of the road on a one-way street that literally has no room for turning around. But instead of submitting to this guy and his huge truck, my friend and I decided to stand our ground, humiliating this idiot in such a way that he truly will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my grocery has a narrow one-way rows of angled parking, and the lot is very busy, in part because there's a shopping mall attached to its feeder road, and jerks will often speed through the lot from the feeder road to avoid a stoplight. These entitled idiots frequently don't grasp the concept of a one-way and cause traffic jams when they inevitably encounter drivers going the right way. It is seriously dangerous. The many other cars and pedestrians don't expect morons to be barreling down the road the wrong way. When one of these traffic jams happens, the easiest way to fix it is the person who's going the right way has to pull back into a parking space, assuming there's an empty one, thus enabling the wrong way idiot to pass. Recently, I was shopping with a friend, and as expected, we pulled out of our spot, and naturally, we soon met with a moron in a gigantic pickup truck bombing up the road the wrong way. Well, it turns out that she had had enough of these people. On this day, most parking spaces around us were filled, but there was one right there that she could have pulled into. Well, Mr. Tiny Man in the pickup felt so entitled to the right-of-way, he even stopped far back enough so she could pull into the spot for his convenience. But rather than do so, she surprised everyone by aggressively slowing down and stopping a few feet from his huge bumper. Mr. Little Man then had the nerve to rev his engine a few times and kept creeping forward threateningly, as if he was going to force us to back all the way up to the end of the aisle so he didn't have to do the same. But my friend just put the car in parked and just waited. He then honked his horn at her, as if she were the one going the wrong way. She then pulled out her phone and started recording him, and I was kind of scared that he might road rage us into an early grave, but he didn't. Behind us, the stoplight he should have gone through turned green, and I could see him seething as he watched all the normal drivers that he thought he'd cut off getting their turn to go ahead of him. In the end, infuriated, he threw his truck into reverse and slammed on the gas, backing up way too fast for a parking lot. About 4 parking spaces back, he miscalculated the angle of his wheel and slammed the back of his pickup on the cart corral. And this wasn't a disabling accident, and luckily he didn't hit a pedestrian, but I'm sure that will cost him a pretty penny. He didn't even stop to get out and inspect the damage, most likely because he managed to publicly shame himself in such a grand fashion. It was honestly all so satisfying to watch because this entitled jerk absolutely had it coming. Oh man, I love this so much because seriously, I have run into this very situation myself. Here you have a one-way road that literally you're meant to go on. It's a tight squeeze and there's only one car that's meant to be there, and you're the one that's supposed to be going this direction. But then here comes some jerk barreling down on you, acting like you're the one that's in the way, when in reality, he's the one who started all of this to begin with. And for starters, the fact that this hasn't been like addressed or had like a cop car parked in front of just to give out tickets and discourage this kind of action, in my opinion, is insane. I can understand not wanting to deal with traffic, but going the wrong way on the road is not the answer. That's how someone gets in an accident or worse. Like seriously, someone could have gotten hurt by this guy. And I just need to say this, and maybe someone can answer this in the comment section, but why is it that anyone who acts this way most likely is someone in a very big truck? Is it because the truck's big and they feel like they can get away with it? Or is there some kind of like, I don't know, correlation between like the kind of person you are and how big your truck is? And also, look, there's obviously some euphemisms here that I've replaced, especially when I say little man, because this guy has more of like a little man energy, if anything, and I think you know what I'm trying to say here. Obviously, I want to say it, but you know that I can't, so I think we kind of understand where I'm coming from, but like, why is that the case? This guy literally was in the wrong, and he thought he could bully this other person into moving? Like, what's happening? Just because your vehicle's bigger than mine doesn't mean that I have to bend to your stupid will. So seriously, to the original poster, I love what you did, and I'm a big fan of this, because this entitled jerk was absolutely in the wrong, and you had every right to stay there until he decided to move. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by accidentally outing my sister's pregnancy all before she was ready to say anything to the family, because right now she is super pissed off at me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the situation. My sister recently found out that she's pregnant, pregnant, but she had not told anyone yet except for me and her husband. She made me swear not to say anything until they were ready to announce it themselves, and I really meant to keep that promise. Well, fast forward to last night, when we were having a small family gathering at our parents' house. Someone brought up babies, and I think it was our aunt asking when someone in the family would finally have kids again, and without thinking, I blurted out something like, "Well, you won't have to wait long," while then looking directly at my sister. Well, everyone immediately turned their attention towards her while I realized what I'd just done, because right in that moment, I wanted to crawl into a hole forever. My sister tried laughing it off at first, but eventually admitted that yes, she is pregnant, but they weren't planning on telling anyone until after her first trimester because they wanted to make sure that everything was okay first. Now she's furious with me for spilling the beans early, and understandably so. Our parents are upset that they weren't told sooner, which is also understandable, and I now feel like the worst sibling ever. What should I do? Oh my gosh, you're that kind of person. You literally spill the beans immediately. And I really do mean immediately, because while sure you may have sat on this information for a while, what you really needed to do was keep your mouth shut anytime that subject is brought up in the first place. Like if I was in your sister's shoes, I would never trust you with any information ever again. You proved right then and there that you can't know anything. You can't keep your mouth shut, you can't keep secrets. I mean, I would never tell you anything ever again if you did that to me. So yeah, you definitely messed up here because what you did is so unbelievably toxic. And if I was in your shoes, I would be falling at my sister's feet begging for forgiveness because what you did is unacceptable and you really should be ashamed of yourself. Am I overreacting for refusing to pay an extra $600 just to stay with my dad before going to the army? Because right now I'm very confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. A few days ago, I decided to join the army. Since I will be leaving soon, I asked my dad if I could stay with him, his fiance, and my sisters until it's time to go. Now, we agreed that I would pay double what I used to contribute for living expenses. For reference, I used to pay $300 a month, so doubling it would be $600. I gave him the $600 as agreed, but then he told me I was another $600 short. Now, I was super confused because $600 is double what I used to pay. I explained that to him, thinking that maybe he forgot the original amount, but he kept insisting that I owed him more money. At that point, I asked him for the extra $600 back because I needed that money, especially with the expenses I have coming up before I leave. Well, he refused to return it and didn't even seem interested in hearing me out. I'm honestly at a loss here. I wasn't trying to cause any drama. I just wanted to contribute fairly and make things easier for everyone before I leave. I feel like he's either misunderstood or deliberately took advantage of the situation, and that honestly hurts. I didn't want to argue about it, so after a few hours, I packed up and I went to my sister's place, and I will be staying here until I leave for basic training. The whole situation has honestly been eating me up. I can't stop thinking about how unnecessary this was. I get that everyone's stressed and maybe money is tight for them, but I feel like I was clear about the arrangement. Plus, I'm about to leave for a huge new chapter in my life, and I didn't expect this kind of stress from my own father right before that. Part of me wants to keep pressing him to return the money because it's not just about the cash, it's the principle of it. On the other hand, I'm wondering if it's worth the energy. So seriously, am I overreacting here? Should I have pushed harder to get the money back, or just let it go and focus on moving forward? I'm really torn between wanting to stand my ground and not wanting to deal with the headache, so I really would love some advice, especially from anyone who's been in a similar situation with family or dealt with money disputes, because right now I'm honestly not sure how to handle this. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're overreacting for wanting that money back, because guess what? If you're not staying there, then he needs to give it back. Plus, this guy's a jerk for trying to charge you double what you already were giving him. Like seriously, this guy is completely immature, and the fact that he was trying to double it on top of that is also insane. So no, you're not the jerk here. Your dad needs to give you your money back because you literally are not staying with him. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would be climbing up the walls with rage, demanding that he hand that back over. Because sure, his money might be tight, but guess what? You're the one that just paid him. And if he really doesn't give that money back, then he is absolutely the one at fault. The new servers that work in my restaurant are absolutely the worst, as they're making my life a living nightmare, forcing me to clean up after them all the time in a way that is truly driving me crazy. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been a server here for almost 2 years now. I'm the closer and head server, and as the head server, I have some authority to a point, and I was recently recommended by my manager to corporate for some kind of manager's position. So I've been training under my manager to take on more responsible roles, but the only thing I can't do until I get the new position is count the drawer and do the schedule. Now we have 2 new hires who I will call Jay and Lisa, and Jay was hired first a few weeks ago, and for some reason, the day shift management always have the new trainees train on the first shift, which is not ideal because first shift has really bad habits. And to illustrate that, let's just say that the first shift and the second shift definitely despise each other. Well, after Jay was put on the floor by himself after his training by the first shift, he was put on second shift and I was shocked by what I saw from him. He has shoulder-length hair that was not pulled up or back, and after 3 weeks, he still has no non-slip shoes. He would also put in an order and then run off to the hotel bathroom, which we are not allowed to do. Or his food would come up, and then he would go to the bathroom for 10 minutes at a time. He never does the 2-minute check back at the table. He never does refills. He doesn't pre-bus dishes from his tables. And my manager basically waited on his tables every night that he worked. A table also complained about a lot of dandruff on his shoulders. He just basically takes an order, puts it in, and then disappears while we do the rest for him. Now, my manager and I go outside to vape and to have meetings. And this is mostly about the schedule and what the general manager or the owner want to see from us, or even something the GM wants to change, product costs, buckling down on certain things, or talk about what we're going to do next for my manager training. Then we talk about personal things in our lives that we just want to stay between us. When we start to head outside, grab our coat as it is snowing where we live, and ask a server to watch the front for us, Jay immediately follows us outside, or sees that we're out there and heads right outside with us. When he gets cut, it's time to do side work, and my God, I can't do my closing until he's done with his side work. And we've told him this many times. Now, I have ADHD and a cleaning OCD. I have a routine that I always do when closing, and I can be clocked out 30 to 45 minutes after we lock the doors. He had never said that he has ADD or ADHD, never mentioned anything about anything close to having it, or anything similar, but this guy is seriously so scattered. One second he's in the back doing his side work, and the next he has half his section vacuumed, and then takes 30 minutes to roll 20 sets of silverware, while he still has 80% of side work in the back left to do. He'll say something like, "Oh, I got bored being back there, so I went up front to do my section," which he didn't even get halfway done before going to do roll with Lisa. We have a 2-hour rule after closing, which basically means we can't stay past 2 hours after close, so we have to hustle to get out of there. He clocked out after being cut for 3 hours and still didn't do all of his side work, and I told him weeks ago that I have a 3-year-old at home that I would like to tuck into bed. Now, when it comes to Lisa, I really thought that she would do great because her parents used to own a restaurant when she was a bit younger. She is a teenager, and she was also trained on first shift, and she was on the floor by herself after 2 days of training, and then she was put in on second shift. And as you can probably guess, Lisa too picked up first shift's bad habits. I've seen her do a multitude of health code violations on my first day working with her, and my high blood pressure skyrocketed. She and Jay, while supposedly doing side work, just stood around talking the entire time. Instead of the 80-20 rule, she is leaning on the wall across from the line on her phone, which is definitely not allowed. I mean, corporate is watching with cameras, and we have literally told her this. If it's not work related, then you can't be on your phone. And she gives an attitude when you ask her to do or don't do something. When we say corner, it should be loud enough to be heard on the opposite side, not loud enough where you can hear it at the front doors as if someone's screaming corner at the top of their lungs. It really disrupts our guests. She also has very rude comments and responses when trying to have a conversation with her. My manager and I have to restart the same sentence at least 3 or more times, especially when telling her about her side work, because she turns around and talks to Jay very loudly and then just laughs about not listening to you. Now, the other night we close at 9 p.m. and I didn't clock out until nearly 8 minutes before 1 in the morning. My manager told them to just clock out and go, and I had to finish their side work, my closing, their sections, and mine, plus roll the silverware I had, 6 sets, and it took 1 minute to roll, but it took them 30 minutes to roll 20 sets each. My manager and I talked about how if someone is going to be on second shift, then they need to be trained by second shift. She's going to talk to the general manager about it, but regardless, I take pride in my job and how I am as a closer. The general manager even called it beautiful when going in on the morning after. Plus, our owner has been secretly coming in as a secret shopper recently, and if he doesn't like what he sees, we will either be sold or shut down. And as for the first shift, they get their tip out and run out the door without doing half their side work or even touching their section. But I come in and finish side work for them. I have to clean my section, do fills, clean tables and booths, and vacuum while missing out on tips because I'm getting skipped over and over. They make sometimes over $300 in tips and skip out, while I come in, do half or more of their work, and make maybe $38 in total. And for reference, it's slow at night during the winter, especially when it snows over 4 inches. I can't work mornings because of my kid, and I don't have anyone to watch her at 8 o'clock in the morning. My mom watches her while I work nights, and my mom works mornings. And they don't want me on first shift because apparently I bully them because I point out health code violations and cross-contaminations that they do. Well, Jay was let go on Monday, and I was told to educate Lisa while working with her. either. But with all things considered, I'm honestly wondering if anyone else has ever dealt with new servers like this before, because I am seriously so frustrated and I don't know what to do. Yeah, it really sounds like your coworkers are not nearly as motivated as you are. And trust me, I understand the animosity between shifts, because there is nothing more frustrating than coming in and realize that people left you their mess to clean up. And it's like, oh my god, are you kidding me right now? If I did that, these people would freak out, and yet I'm expected to keep my stuff clean for them in the morning. It's like, what are we doing right now? That is so unfair. Now, I know if I was in your shoes, I would just keep doing the best that I can and try to show my coworkers that yes, they need to work together to get things done. That means doing their side work and doing their portion of what they need to do. And it sounds like you might be up for management, so I think having some kind of like practice with that and trying to keep a level head while also trying to train them would probably do wonders for your job and your sanity at this job. Because trust me, I totally understand where you're coming from, especially when you're dealing with incompetent coworkers, because that really can bog you down in a way that others can't understand unless they experience it themselves. I was severely bullied during my stay at a small Christian university, resulting in a lot of anguish and a lot of problems in my life. But at the end of the day, karma came around and took care of my bullies in a way that they will never forget, as their lives literally fell apart. Here's what happened. Okay, so I attended a small Christian university roughly 20 years ago. It was actually accredited and offered a good education. Honestly, the professors and staff were really good overall, but oh dear sweet flying spaghetti monster, the students were something else. It was like a magnet for entitled brats. My first year, I had not made many friends. I'm an introvert, and I was so painfully shy at the time, so pulling myself out there was really hard. As a result, I ended up with a roommate my second year that I didn't know at all. Let's call him Jake for the sake of the story. Jake was a bully. Most of my life, I think I walked around with a bully me sign on my back, as it was a pretty constant thing in my childhood and early adult life. He would randomly take things, question every choice I made, and talk down about my studies. He also had a friend who we will call Mark, who was maybe even worse. He was also a bully. The guy was a checklist of all the worst aspects of religious fanatics, arrogant, a hypocrite, and seemed to want power and influence. And so he was aiming to become a pastor. Both were pretty relentless in bullying me. They said that they wouldn't if I stood up for myself, but when I did, I quickly found out that they could dish it out but couldn't take it. They would interrupt my studies and sleep constantly, and it was seriously the first time I ever contemplated hurting myself in a serious way, if you know what I mean. I ended up spending most of my time anywhere that wasn't my dorm. Now, there are a lot of stories I could share about them, but I wanted to focus on just a few. For starters, Mark liked to play video games with us, mostly Smash Brothers. He was always cocky, and he was better than me, who prefers to play other types of games. Trash talk was common, but neither of them could take what they dished out. One time we were playing with a group, and I actually managed to win. I was in the zone, and I felt really good. That is, until Mark opened his mouth. Mark said to me, "Wow, I lost to this guy? Man, I was playing terribly." I said to him, "Well, maybe God wanted to see you humbled." And yes, I kinda sucked at burns back then. Mark then looked at me and said, "Well, he's gonna love when you get punched in the face." One of the other players gave out a whoa as he'd essentially threatened me with violence. And this is all over a video game because he lost once. I guess I was feeling annoyed since he was being dismissive of me and had basically said I deserved to get punched in the face. I responded by saying, "You get annoyed with us for cursing, and you basically said you want me to get punched." Mark then starts on some lecture about how cursing is against God, when the same guy who had given the whoa before just said, "Mark, please shut the F up." And at this point, I couldn't help it. I laughed my butt off. Mark just sat there kinda unable to say anything. The guy later told me that he got a lecture from Mark for cursing, but said that it was well worth it. Mark had a bevy of other entitled moments as well. He would enter people's rooms without asking and use their stuff. He also shamed a friend of mine because I was able to get close to her but he wasn't, and several other instances of refusing to pay people back. But now I want to talk about Jake. This one is more secondhand, but I trust the sources. Jake wasn't as religious at the time. While I was back home for a weekend, he apparently decided to go out drinking. Now, being a religious school, this was a big no-no. He'd actually get into trouble for this before, but he felt it was a stupid rule, so he wasn't going to follow it. And I should also note that he was underage for where we lived at the time. Anyways, he came into the common area blitzed. Two of my friends were watching a film, and he just kind of sat down, tossing his keys onto the table. After a bit, he started to vomit, and they fetched the RA on duty at the time. This particular RA was a really good guy, the kind of person who'd go out of his way to make sure everyone was doing well and help out with any issues. When he saw Jake, he asked if he needed any help or water or anything else like that. But Jake wasn't having it though. He told everybody to F off and that he was leaving, and then he went for his keys. Now, the RA likely would have let the drinking slip since he was more concerned for his well-being, but he wasn't about to let someone drink and drive. So when he reached out to grab the keys, Jake Jake punched him across the face. Now, I don't have many details about what happened after that, but I got a call letting me know my roommate was being kicked out of the school and that he was not permitted to come on campus anymore. This also actually led to a lot of problems for me, since they suspected I knew and was hiding it. I told them I avoided being in that room as much as possible, which friends and the library staff confirmed, but it did cost me becoming an RA since the higher-ups still weren't sure about me. Fortunately, Mark had to leave school after that year because his parents were not going to fund him and his poor grades, and Jake was banned from campus. Mark, who had wanted to become a minister, thankfully never was appointed to any church leadership. And for Jake, it actually is kind of a sad story, as he spiraled and ended up homeless for a long time, and he's now every bit the religious zealot that Mark was. After that, things were much better for me. I found my people on campus, mostly in my major, as well as others who took Love Thy Neighbor much more seriously. After graduating, I ended up working overseas, deconverting and getting help I need for my mental health disorders, and finding some of the best friends I've ever known. And this wouldn't be my last encounter with an entitled bully, but I'm better and I'm handling it now. All this to say is that if you're planning to attend a small religious college, well, maybe consider some alternatives. I'm not saying religion is bad, but if my experience is any indication, your faith is better served elsewhere. Wow, this is crazy to me. I've never been to a religious school, but a lot of my friends that I talk to basically say, yeah, this is kind of their experience. And that sucks. That really sucks because you would expect some kind of like higher standard of living. And yet here you have guys that are literally trying to be like, oh yeah, this is God's plan for me. Meanwhile, they're doing the exact opposite of what's expected of them. So yeah, to the original poster, I'm so sorry you went through that, and I'm sorry that you had to see this level of hypocrisy, because the way these guys treated you was completely out of line. My entitled sister tries to steal money out of my trust fund by calling them up, pretending to be me, all in some weird attempt to transfer money into her account. And right now, I'm honestly so shocked and disgusted by her actions that right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 38-year-old female and my family is a little messed up. I have essentially had 5 parents and 3 different groups of siblings. So yeah, it's a bit much. As a child, I was living in the United States with my adoptive parents, and a lot of stuff went down that wasn't great. So I moved back to the United Kingdom when I was 9 years old. I had a lot of trauma and the beginnings of a rather serious substance problem, and so my dad in the United States set up a trust for me before he passed away so that anything mental health related was paid for and I didn't have to stress about being able to sort myself out as I got older. And it has been rather handy over the last 30 years, paying for a home when I was a teenager, as well as therapy and rehab. Basically anything needed to help me not pass away. At some point in my teenage years, I made contact with my biological parents and their other kids, and I was somewhat welcomed back into the fold. Now, some of my full siblings had issue with this, which is fair enough, and it was a big change to everyone's lives. My little sister apparently found it particularly hard, and so we've never got along and have been no contact for almost a decade. This has become particularly apparent in the recent weeks after she contacted the solicitors who are in control of the trust, pretending to be me from a rehab facility in the United States. Apparently, she sent them an invoice for a 3-month stay, requesting payment to the bank account of a friend of hers in the United States. The first I heard about this was a phone call from said solicitors offering me their commiseration that I was due to enter the facility, wishing me luck and double-checking the details. And when I heard this, I was absolutely livid, as I realized right then and there that I was being scammed. This is tens of thousands of pounds that she's tried to steal from me, money that she has absolutely no right to. She never met my adoptive parents, she's not owed any money from them, and she's lived a perfectly normal life with both of her parents, her other siblings, going on holidays, having her university paid for, and never having any real big dramas. And she thinks that she can just take them from me because she wants to buy a house, and thinks that I should help her out because I ruined her childhood. Except she can't even ask me about it, and instead she has to try and steal it from me. I have no idea what to do about this, because if I go to the police, then I'll create even more drama in the family that I really could do without, and I feel like that's exactly what she wants. Our parents will side with her and she knows it. I don't want to give her the satisfaction, but I'm just so mad that she chose this specific way to try and take what's not hers. It feels like such a low blow. What should I do? Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine running into this scenario because this is crazy. Bro, you're telling me this lady literally was like, oh yeah, I'm the original poster. I'm going back to rehab. Send me money to the United States. It's like, dude, what are we talking about? That is crazy. Thank goodness these people had the right mind to call you and be like, oh, okay, we just want to work out the details, because this is crazy. This is some criminal level stuff. And the fact that she tried to steal your trust fund and be like, okay, I'm gonna get this out of you, all because you allegedly ruined her childhood, like that is some crazy levels levels of weird I just can't even describe it. And also, if she really thinks that you ruined her childhood, why would she go back to you to try and steal from you? That literally solves nothing. If anything, it's just gonna get her in hot water. Like, why on earth would she willingly do that to herself? So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would stay no contact with that lady, because clearly she's a disgruntled adult who has no way of coping with her current problems. Because in my opinion, what she tried to do is incredibly criminal. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to cover outrageous costs for my future sister-in-law's bridal shower after I was told that I would have to foot the bill as well as all the other bridesmaids that are involved? And with the cost of this event going up further and further than I expected, I'm now at a point where I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female and I'm going to be a bridesmaid in my fiance's older sister's wedding, which is set for October of 2025. While I'm excited to be part of her big day, I've been a bridesmaid before and I know how expensive it can be. The costs for this wedding are piling up quickly. I've already paid $300 for the bridesmaid dress, the required shoes, and $1,000 for the destination bachelorette trip. Initially, we were told there was no pressure to attend, but her mom later said that it was awful, that some bridesmaids were considering skipping due to the cost, so I definitely felt pressured to go. After we booked the trip, the maid of honor informed us that we would also be covering all of the bride's costs during the trip, namely the food, the drinks, or literally anything else. This was never discussed beforehand and added another unexpected expense on top of an already expensive trip. My future mother-in-law mentioned that as a bridesmaid, I'm expected to help pay for the bridal shower. She said she Googled it and found that the bridesmaids are responsible for the costs and not her as the mother of the bride. In all of the weddings I've been a part of, the bridal shower costs were primarily covered by family or a family friend who volunteered to host at their home, and the bridesmaids usually help with smaller things like games and decorations. I don't mind contributing to the bridal shower, but it needs to be within reason. With everything else I've already paid for, it's becoming unmanageable, especially since I'm trying to save for my own wedding, which is planned for mid-2026. My future sister-in-law is expecting a full catered bridal shower with elaborate decor, which feels unrealistic for a group of bridesmaids to fund. It also seems like she's picking things that aren't even within her budget and assuming others will cover the difference. So seriously, am I the jerk for wanting to set boundaries around the bridal shower cost, especially when it feels like at every turn, an unexpected expense comes up without any discussion? And trust me, I know that weddings are expensive, especially as I'm currently planning one out myself. But how much is too much to ask your bridesmaids to pay? In previous weddings I was a bridesmaid in, I would spend about a little over $1,000 in total. But in this case, that's not even covering the bachelorette trip. I do want to make this whole thing special for her, but it's just starting to get very costly, and I know the other bridesmaids are feeling the pressure too. We are all so young and we're just starting out our careers. So would I be the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first off, I don't think you would be the jerk here because I have never heard of anybody covering the cost of the wedding other than the parents or like the immediate family. Since when does the bridesmaid have to cover everything? That is so foreign to me. I've literally never heard of that. And it kind of makes me think that the mother-in-law is just straight up lying and she's trying to save costs by being like, oh no, that's coming out of your pocket. And they really seem like they're trying to take advantage of you. And just look at this mother-in-law's logic. Okay, so she saw it on Google. It's like, okay, cool. What is that supposed to mean? Why are we allowing Google to dictate who is and is not paying for this stupid wedding? Because in my opinion, whoever hosts or plans the bridal shower, they're the ones that need to pay. Because if the bridesmaids are the ones that are funding it, then they get to call the shots on how much they're gonna spend. Not just be handed a bill and be like, okay, you need to pay this. This is your obligation. This is what Google says. Like, this is all so ridiculous in my opinion. So no, you're not a jerk here. I think you're absolutely being taken advantage of. And I think setting some clear expectations, regardless of how pissed off they might get, in my opinion, is super important in this scenario. My classmates from 5th grade ended up getting married together, all because of a prank that I played on them when we were kids. And even now, I'm honestly amazed by the way I played Cupid without even realizing it, as they are now a happy family with a kid. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was in primary school, I was a bit of a chaotic little gremlin. I had this thing that I would do where I'd write fake love notes to girls, pretending they were from the sweatiest, stinkiest, most questionable guys in class. Now, why, you might ask? I did this purely out of pettiness, and it was my twisted way of getting back at girls I didn't like. There was this one girl, let's call her Wilma for the sake of the story, and I absolutely could not stand her. She was my mortal enemy in the 5th grade for reasons I can't even remember now. And then there was Alex, the unfortunate sweaty guy of the class. Alex smelled like sour milk that had been left out in the sun, and he was a little on the chubby side. And so, obviously, I decided they were the perfect victims for my master prank. I carefully crafted a love note in Alex's handwriting, which was basically just a series of crooked chicken scratches. And the note said something like, "Hi Wilma, I like you. Do you want to date me? From Alex." I slipped it into her bag during lunch, thinking this was going to be the most epic prank of all time. After lunch, Wilma found the note and went absolutely bananas. She was showing it to everybody, saying stuff like, "Oh my god, Alex likes me." I tried to play it cool and ask her what it said, and all she said was, "None of your business." Well, here's where it gets wild. Alex didn't even deny it. He just stood there, probably sweating even more than usual, and said something like, "Yeah, maybe I do," meaning that my brilliant prank totally backfired because not long after, Wilma and Alex started hanging out during lunch. They would sit together, giggling and sharing sandwiches, while I sat there stewing in my own failure. Fast forward to years later, and I was bored and stalking Wilma's social media, and guess what? She freaking married him. They have a kid together and everything, all because of me. I mean, I played Cupid without even meaning to. Sometimes I'd lie awake at night, wondering if I should send them an anonymous message, saying something like, "Hey, congrats on the family. By the way, your whole relationship started as a petty prank, so you're welcome." But either way, this whole scenario is kind of wild. Okay, this might be the first time where I can confidently say that the original poster is the bully of this story. Like seriously, what is going on right now? This guy's trying to make it sound like, oh yeah, they have a family because of me. And it's like, yeah, and you probably have no one because of you as well. Like for starters, why in the world would you treat people like this? You're already making fun of the quiet fat kid in the corner, and you decide to pair him up with a girl that you don't like for some reason that you can't even remember. And in fact, the original poster goes on to clarify that they actually had a crush on this girl. So basically, you tried to bully the quiet kid and get back at a girl that clearly did not like you. And then here you are trying to be like, wow, they have a family because of me. I didn't mean to play Cupid. I should really message them. And it's like, dude, this happened back in 5th grade, and you're still bragging about that as some kind of accomplishment? First of all, don't ever message those people ever again. But also, my man, it's time to grow up and move on. If some of your greatest accomplishments are literally something you did in 5th grade, then you need to get out there and live life more, because it really doesn't sound like you have grown up at all. And in the end, I think you're still that same bully from 5th grade, looking on as everybody else has moved on and you're basically left in the dust. An entitled jerk unsuccessfully tried to steal my airline window seat, refusing to move and literally looking at me as if I'm the crazy one. But thankfully, I stood up for myself and I didn't take his garbage, forcing him in his shame to move over so that I could take my seat. And it honestly felt so good to watch his face drop as he realized he was not going to win this interaction. Here's what happened. Okay, so while I was boarding my flight, I realized that some entitled idiot who had earlier pushed past other passengers to board first in priority group 1 was now sitting in my window seat. When I got to my row, I pointed and politely told him that he was in my seat. But he just looked at me and said, "Oh, what seat are you supposed to be in?" I told him, well, it's 11F, the window seat you're sitting in. I then proceeded to load my luggage into the overhead bin, and as I did so, the other guy in the aisle seat got up to let me move over to my seat, but guess what? This entitled idiot wouldn't budge. This guy just watched me load my stuff overhead, hoping that I would forget or something like that, and finally just accept his middle seat, which guess what? Is his seat. For context, I'm a 5'11" female, and I would never book a middle seat and risk being wedged between two people my size or larger. So after I finished loading my stuff, I just waited patiently for him to start unbuckling himself, collect his crap from under the seat, and then finally move. A couple other people also repeated to him that he was in the wrong seat, as I'm guessing they assumed that he was deaf, even though he wasn't. Well, there was no movement from this idiot, so I continued to wait in the aisle, resulting in a very satisfying staring contest that lasted at least 20 seconds before he finally started to pretend to fumble in his pockets for his boarding pass. I finally told him that we were all happy to hold up the plane and wait for him to move so I could get seated in the seat that I was clearly assigned on my boarding pass. And it honestly felt so good to stand up for myself, because there was no way I was gonna let this entitled jerk get his way. Oh, I love this for so many reasons, because seriously, I can't imagine someone having the guts to be like, oh no, I'm taking this seat. This is where I'm supposed to sit. And then just sitting there obnoxiously expecting you to roll over and just be like, okay, you can have it, no worries. Like, this is really not a hard concept. When you get on an airplane, you have a seat that you're supposed to go to. And I don't care if you picked that seat or if the airline picked it for you. Congratulations, that's where you're sitting for the next few hours. So for anybody to realistically in today's day and age sit there and be like, well, I want to sit here instead. It's like, no man, you're not doing that. Get out of my seat that I probably paid more for and let me sit down. So seriously, I'm really glad that you stood up for yourself, because people like this absolutely deserve to be shut down. Am I the jerk for asking someone to move out of my way in front of the disabled toilet, as they were literally preventing me from going to the bathroom, as I have a medical problem where I need to go to the bathroom, otherwise I'm in a lot of pain? Because right right now I'm worried that I responded very rudely, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is something that I've been ruminating on for a while. I went to a show on the weekend. I'm disabled, so rarely do I go to these things. And usually I get an aisle seat so I can go to the bathroom easily. Without oversharing, I have to frequently go to the bathroom, and if I don't, it can be very painful. I have adenomyosis, as well as a neurological disorder. At this show, tickets sold out quickly, and my friend booked them and said there wasn't a way to get to an aisle, so I just had to hold on. I went before and I would go at intermission, but it was completely worth it as I had a great time. At halftime, I was very uncomfortable and very sore, so I got up and I hurried to the bathroom. I assumed two people standing outside the bathroom were just leaning on the wall, so I walked past them with my radar key on hand. They then told me that they were in queue, so I waited, with one of them being very drunk. They went in together as they were a pair, and I waited outside. While I waited, I could smell cigarette smoke as I have a strong sense of smell. They took a while in the bathroom, not that I'm judging, and it probably felt longer as I was in agony at this point and rather grumpy. So when they came out, they were taking a while. One of them was corralling the drunk person and it was taking forever. So I said to them, "Excuse me, I can't hold my bladder." They then immediately got angry with me and said, "Well, neither can I, you're being so rude." But I responded by saying, "That's nice, can I go pee now?" And this is all because they were standing in my way, and at this point I'm doubled over. Adenomyosis is not comfortable at the best of times, and I can get very snappy when I'm sore. Well, eventually I get in, I sort myself out in the bathroom that stinks of cigarettes, and then I get back into the auditorium. When I pass them, they get upset with me again, saying how I was really rude and that I should be more patient. But I explained to them that I was in a lot of pain, and I apologized for snapping. They explained they also had issues, and assumed that I was being rude, as their illness was invisible. But still, am I the jerk? Is there not a jerk in this situation? Honestly, I don't know. But I've been really stuck in overthinking it. On one hand, it feels like a big misunderstanding, but on the other hand, it comes to me when I'm relaxing and it just makes me cringe. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It honestly seems like there was some major miscommunication in the heat of the moment, and I think moving on from this will really be the best option, because at the end of the day, you will literally never see these people again. And whether or not they understand where you're coming from is honestly something I would not try to focus on. My girlfriend doesn't drive, and she doesn't have a driver's license. And now, after driving her around for the 6 years that we've been together, I'm honestly at my breaking point and I really feel worn down, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my girlfriend and I have been together for 6 years. She doesn't have a driver's license, and while it didn't bother me at first, it has been weighing on me more lately. We met in college, and back then, she took the bus everywhere, and I admired her for that because it showed resourcefulness, and I was inspired by her work ethic, balancing a full-time school schedule and a job. It was one of the things that drew me to her. When we started dating, I became her personal driver, taking her to school, work, and home. At the time, I didn't mind. However, as the years have gone by, I feel like the dynamic has shifted, and I'm starting to feel the strain. During our second year together, I suggested that she learn to drive. She seemed excited at first, but as time went on, the plans to practice driving would get postponed due to finals or other stressors. Eventually, she became upset when I brought it up, saying it added to her stress. Well, I respected her feelings and dropped the topic until after college. She graduated in 2023, while I graduated in 2022, and I started working full-time shortly after that. Over the next 6 months, I suggested driving lessons again, but the conversation led to her becoming upset. I decided to focus on supporting her and didn't push the issues any further. However, I started feeling burnt out from driving her everywhere, especially since she didn't have a job or taking any steps towards driving. At the start of 2024, she seemed more motivated. She agreed to practice driving, and we had made plans to practice on the weekends. While the first few weekends went well, I noticed a lack of follow-through on her end. If I didn't wake up, she wouldn't call or text me as we had agreed, and on the days I did wake up, she sometimes wouldn't respond. This pattern made me feel like I was putting in more effort than she was. In June, she finally got a job, but works an unusual schedule from Saturday to Wednesday, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. And since she doesn't drive, I have to take her to work. This requires waking up early on weekends and driving long distances during the week, about 80 miles a day, including the trips to my job and back. And by the time I get home, I'm exhausted and barely have time for myself. I feel like my personal time has disappeared. I'd like to work out after work, take a mixology class, or even just sleep in on the weekends. However, my responsibilities with her and sometimes her family make it hard to prioritize myself. I'm not sure how to address this without feeling hurt or blamed. I miss the hardworking and independent person I first met, and I want to find a way to communicate my feelings effectively while also finding a balance. How can I navigate this situation and express my needs without causing unnecessary conflict? conflict. What should I do? Okay, honestly, in my opinion, the fact that she is 26 years old and doesn't have a driver's license or has any aspirations to actively get one is unacceptable and not fair for you. You said it yourself, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. This is wearing you down and you literally just can't do anything else. Like, I know if I was in that situation, I would be incredibly pissed off and very stressed out. Because seriously, you are stuck driving her everywhere. You somehow became her personal chauffeur, and that is not fair for you in the slightest. So I can say, in my opinion, this really would be a deal breaker after a while, especially after 6 years and she still hasn't taken any time to get this done. So hopefully this works out, because honestly, this sounds incredibly obnoxious. My entitled grandma almost makes me walk home instead of just driving me over there, all because she was really impressed by the way she parked in a parallel parking spot. And I'm honestly still dumbfounded by this level of idiocracy that I seriously hope I don't deal with her in this way ever again. Here's what happened. So during my freshman year of college last year, my grandma agreed to pick me up from school for spring break and take me out to dinner. I was pretty happy because her and my grandfather had been in Florida for months and I hadn't seen them in a while. First of all, she never reached out to me directly, and I found out she was picking me up from my mom. I was 19 at the time, I wasn't home, and very much had a phone, so I don't know why she was using my mom as a middleman. So I get packed up and I'm sitting in my dorm waiting for her. Now this is very important to the story. One of the things I was bringing with me was my betta fish, since I was going to be gone for over a week. I get a call from my dad and he tells me that my grandma got in a car accident. No one was hurt, but apparently her tire popped. I will also add that she said her tire popped because the guy had something sticking off of his car, but honestly it kind of seemed like she hit the guy. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I had to be out of the dorm by 7, but I understood if she couldn't get me. She ends up leaving her car with AAA and comes to get me in my mom's car. I put all my stuff in the back and I'm sitting in the front seat with her with my fish in a container in my lap. We then get to the restaurant, which is a block away from my house, and we park in front. Her car had been fixed and parked across the street from where we were. And then one of the weirdest conversations I've ever experienced happened right in front of me. And I'm honestly still scratching my head over this one. She says to me, "Okay, is there anything you need to bring with you tonight?" Now when she said this, I'm immediately confused. I had all of my clothing, my laptop, and a live animal swimming around in my lap. In fact, I had a birthday party to go to the next day. So I say to her, well, I need my clothes. And then she says to me, "Okay, then you're gonna have to move it to my car right now because I'm not driving you home in your mom's car after dinner." When she said this, my eye twitched. At this point, I am beyond confused. My mom was at work at the restaurant we were going to. She wouldn't be home until midnight, which means anything I left in that car, I would not have access until midnight. The restaurant was a block away from my house. So I ask her, why can't I just drop my stuff off there and go back? She looks at me and says, "I did a really good job parking." At this point, I kind of nervously laugh because it's like, what are you talking about? And then I pause to wait for her to laugh too, but she didn't. After a long silence, she gets out of the car and tells me to start getting my stuff. I'm holding a poor betta fish in my hands, and I'm mentally preparing to leave her in the car in 30-degree weather for over an hour at the demand of this obstinate retiree, when suddenly she looks down and goes, "No, my car's not that straight. We can go to your house and drop off your stuff there." So after all that, we ended up going to my house anyways. And at this point, I'm fuming for the rest of the night. When I got home, I told my parents what happened, and they were both also extremely confused. Just a whole lot of confusion across the board, all because of my grandmother and this stupid parking spot. It is always amazing to me that people can be so self-centered that they literally miss everything else that's going on around them. Like they are so wrapped up in their own personal accomplishments or stuff they have going on, where they're like, "Wow, I did a good job parallel parking." But then they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, the person that you drove there, they've got a living animal and all their crap with them. Do you really expect them to leave it in this freezing cold car while you guys go into a restaurant to eat? Not to mention the fact that the house is literally a block away. Like, what is going on right now?" So yeah, your grandma was completely wrong for acting like that and for even pretending like she was gonna make you walk to the house. Because I know if I was in that situation, I would be incredibly annoyed. My entitled family demands that I hand over my lottery ticket winnings after I win $25,000 during our family's Christmas white elephant gift exchange. But after the way they treated me and the way they freaked out on me and called me selfish for not giving them more money, I decided to keep everything to myself. And now I'm worried that I may have destroyed my relationship with my family because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, the recent family Christmas party was at my house this year and about 25 people showed up. The traditional game this year was White Elephant. My family plays the dice version with some house rules for context. Anyone who doesn't have a gift by the end of the game will receive $10 as a gift. Also, trading gifts is allowed, only with a $10 consolation gift. The game had a total of about 40 gifts. I ended the game with 4 gifts, and 4 family members ended with none. My gifts were a space heater, windshield wipers, a 20-pound gummy bear, and a $50 Starbucks gift card. Of the 4 people without a gift, 3 of them got rejected, meaning only 1 trade was made. My cousin ended with $50 worth of lottery tickets, but assumed they'd be worth nothing and I don't go to Starbucks. Now, we couldn't trade because of the rules above, and argued that the gift cards and the lottery tickets had a numerical value, just like the $10 gifts, so they should be tradable. Well, the family agreed and more gift cards were exchanged, and this will be important later on. Trading ended and people began using their gifts, so I went to put my gifts back in my room, and I got a quarter to scratch my 5 $10 tickets. Now, I thought to myself, I'm not expecting to win anything, but the second I was about to move on to the 3rd ticket, I did a double take and I realized I won $25,000. For a second, I thought they were fake, but my grandma who bought them wouldn't do that. I sat in my room for a bit and decided to keep quiet about it, knowing how some family members might react. I thought about how I would tell them throughout the party, and when they asked about it, I said no and that I threw them out. But unfortunately, this is just the beginning of my problems, as my family turns on me in a way that I honestly never expected. The next day on the 29th, I asked my mom to come with me to cash in the lottery ticket. Now, she was surprised, of course, and told me that I needed to go to the casino, with my brother thinking this was funny and deciding to tag along. He proceeded to post snaps of me being handed $100 bills in the casino, although I told him not to say anything because of the commotion it would cause, and that I'd share some with the family. He posted it anyways. Well, an hour passes, and I'm pulled into a group chat of people from the party, plus some family members that couldn't make it. I said that I'd give everyone who came to the party $250, but they thought I was being selfish. For about 30 people that attended, that's $7,500 right there. I felt that was fair, but family members who were not even there argued that they shouldn't be excluded, and others argue that $250 isn't enough if I have $25,000. After about 30 minutes of arguing, I was pissed and I gave up negotiating. I told everyone that I'm sorry that they're not happy with their white elephant gifts this year, and that the rule was that all trades are final. So in the end, I kept all the money. I put $15,000 in my savings, and then I invested the rest. But now, many of my family members are still upset with me, even going as far as calling me cruel and heartless. But I told them that if $250 isn't enough from a $100 limit, then they are the selfish ones and not me. So seriously, am I at fault here, or am I the jerk for the way things went down? Because right now, I feel like there's a giant rift in my family. Okay, I've said this once and I'll say it 100 times on this channel. Do not tell people if you win the lottery. This is a prime example. First of all, it's only $25,000, and all these people are suddenly rolling up and being like, well, where's my share of it? $250 is not nearly enough. Like, at that point, I don't blame you for taking all the money and being like, screw you guys, I'm out of here, I'm not doing this. Because this is how people act when money is involved. They change, they become vindictive, especially when it comes to family. Like, my God, your first mistake was telling anybody about this. You should have kept a lid on it and gone yourself. And for context, the original poster is 22 years old, so I'm willing to bet that they could have taken care of this by themselves. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for taking all the money, especially with the way that everybody acted, but I do think you're crazy for ever negotiating with anyone. Because if I was in your shoes, I would have quietly taken that money and used it for myself. I would not have gone to the rest of the family and been like, okay, everybody's getting a little bit of it, let's figure this out. Because at the end of the day, this is your money, and no one, and I mean no one in your extended family, has any say on what you can and cannot do with it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My ex said that I'll never make more than minimum wage and put me down in a way that was truly humiliating. So I decided to get some revenge by working harder than I've ever worked in my life to obtain a job that would not only make more money than him, but would also outpace any promotion he could possibly get. And I'm honestly so glad when we finally got a divorce, because that guy was absolutely unbearable. Here's what happened. Many years ago, after the birth of my oldest son, I desperately needed a job. I was scouring through the job section of as many newspapers as I could get my hands on. The pickings were slim, as my highest qualification was graduating high school. I had to ignore minimum wage jobs because it would cost more than it paid. Then my ex said the magic words, "Stop being so picky, as you're never going to earn more than minimum wage." Well, I saw red. Then I found the ad. They advertised free training to become a software engineer, obtain a professional certification, and get you a job afterwards. The only requirement was a high school diploma with a passing math grade. At first, I was very wary, because it definitely felt like it was too good to be true and possibly a scam, but I had nothing to lose by just checking it out. So off I went. The first day of the acceptance process was was grueling. Multiple timed aptitude tests that took hours to complete. The ones who passed were invited to a second round of testing. This time, there were a lot less people. Out of the 30 people from the first day, only 2 of us were accepted at the end. And that's when I come to find out that it wasn't a scam. The reason why it was free was because the employers would pay for the training, and I was thrilled. But then this was followed by the most intensive 4 months of my life. But I was determined to prove my ex wrong. To give you a breakdown, I had 8 hours in class every single weekday, and another 6 for homework and studying. Then I would go from studying and doing a weekend project for another 20 hours over the weekend. I only got about 6 hours of sleep each night. Thankfully, my son was sleeping through the night by then. And eventually I made it. I did really well in my final exams too. The job search was short and sweet, and since it was only 3 years before Y2K, and even entry-level engineers were earning good salaries. And to top it all off, when I got my offer, my salary was more than my ex got. Internally, I was elated, and I thought, okay, well take that, you insufferable jerk, even though I didn't say it out loud. As time went by, I kept getting really good raises and promotions, and my ex had finally had enough of the humiliation and eventually wanted a divorce. And trust me, I jumped at the chance to escape him. Wow, good for you for stepping up and getting this done. This could have gone one of 2 ways. Either you would figure your life out, or you would burn out and go back to something minimum wage. But you stuck through it just to spite your ex, and I love that kind of like petty revenge. Because this guy's way of treating you, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not being reliable enough for my sister to use me as a backup babysitter for her kids during an emergency? Because right now my entire family has turned on me and is actively criticizing my life. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so right now I feel bad about this situation while also feeling resentment towards my family. My sister lives about 20 minutes away from me near our parents. There was a family emergency where she needed to meet my parents at the hospital, and taking her kids wasn't an option. She called me up at 6:45 p.m. on her way to my apartment to tell me that she needed to drop off the kids quickly and then run. I tried to tell her that I was not in the right condition for that, but she told me that it was an emergency and she had no other option. I begged her to call her mother-in-law, but she said that wouldn't work. When she showed up, she stepped inside my apartment to hand off her kids. And like I told her, I wasn't in a good condition for this. My friend and I had celebrated her new job. My sister was shocked and disgusted and then dragged her kids off, but not before telling me what a pathetic loser she thinks I am. She ended up texting me a novel about how disappointed she is, how upsetting it is for her kids to have walked into my apartment reeking of the herb, how I'm 27 years old and should be over this phase of my life and all this other garbage. She ripped into me for still living with 5 roommates, not having a car, and all this other stuff. It was deeply hurtful, and I just apologized for not being able to help her and the kids. Of course, I had no idea there could be an emergency like this, but you never know. That's why it's an emergency. And yes, I live with 5 people, but they are all my friends and we need each other to afford living here. Also, I don't have a car because I can't drive. And on top of that, the herb is legal here, and it's not a crime to smoke once in a while. My sister said that she was so disgusted with me that she brought my parents into it, and now they've all banded together to let me know what a piece of garbage I am for not living up to anyone's expectations. I do feel a bit defensive because I had no way of knowing this would happen. So I guess my question boils down to this. Am I the jerk for not being ready for an emergency at my big age of 27? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, what in the world is wrong with people? First off, no, this is not your fault, and no, you're not the jerk. Anyone taking your sister's side is so irrational. This went from your sister having an emergency all the way to your family basically like criticizing your living standards. Like seriously, what's happening here? It is so unfair for them to be like, wow, you're 27 years old. It's time for you to grow up. And it's like, okay, that's rich, coming from the person who literally is not planning ahead and is instead trying to drop off her kids and run off to whatever's going on. And sure, I get it, there's a family emergency, but does your sister seriously expect everybody to drop what they're doing and be like, oh yeah, we'll take care of your kids all of a sudden out of nowhere? Under different circumstances, this could work out. But the moment you said, hey, I can't take care of your kids right now, should have been the very second that she steps up and says, okay, let me ask someone else. Like it really is that simple. They owe you a massive apology for the way they treated you. And in my opinion, it almost seems like she finally found an excuse to openly criticize you. She comes by and tries to drop her kids off, and the second you say no, which honestly anybody would say no, she can now be like, wow, they are so irresponsible. Look at the way they're living their lives. I can't believe them. So with all that being said, no, you're not the jerk, because your sister is a complete idiot. And if she had any brains in her head, she would have gone to someone immediately instead of trying to drag you and your life. My entitled Karen of a coworker reported me to my supervisor for not doing my job exactly as described. But despite the fact that I tried to do things in the most optimized way, my coworker still reported me, ignoring the fact that I was split between 2 buildings and working incredibly hard. Here's what happened. Okay, so I really want to start off by saying I hate entitled people. I get that some people have bad days and end up snapping at those around them, but sometimes it just goes way too far, and this was one of those times. So buckle up because this really is a long one. Now, to try and set the scene, here is some important context. I'm a third shift security guard working at a site with 2 buildings owned by the client, and they are about 5 minutes apart, if that. The client is a storage and shipping company that rents out space in these buildings to a big name luxury goods brand. Shifts for guards are set up so that 1 guard is in each building per shift, with a mobile guard that floats between buildings as necessary to cover breaks, man the checkpoints while the post guard does their duties, and clear out truckers from the parking lots when they're not supposed to be there. The mobile guards are expected to use their own vehicles and don't get compensated for gas or wear. And this will be an important detail later on. Now, with all that in mind, here's the story. I've been working at this site for almost 2 years now, and in that time, I've gotten pretty familiar with the job and what can and can't be done, especially on the third shift. Things pick up around Thanksgiving to Christmas due to an increase of customer demand, so seasonal workers are hired by the client to help meet the demand, and as a result, extra guards are posted to the site to assist with medical emergencies, thievery, or anything else that might come up. This allows for 2 guards per building, often with the mobile still going between them. During my first year of employment here, one of those guards ended up staying on after the season was over, and that person is a lady that we will call Patricia, who is the entitled Karen of the story. Patricia is not her real name. Now, she is a sociable woman, she's friendly and outgoing, but she is a bit blunt. She makes jokes about everyone, even herself, and pokes fun at everything with a sarcastic type of humor that I don't really mind, as it is fairly similar to my own. She's also very touchy and likes to give hugs. Again, I don't really mind, because while I don't really like being touched, she is generally pretty nice, and she can actually get me to open up a little at work. However, here's where the entitlement comes in. Over the course of working with her, I've learned that she can be a bit of a drama queen, and I mean that in every possible way. She regularly complains about the other guards, and probably complains about me to them. She's constantly complaining about her living situation, and that list just goes on and on. It all came to a head for me last night when I finally realized just how deep the entitlement ran, because the way she acted truly blew my mind, and the resulting damage made my life a living nightmare. Now, remember how I said mobile guards don't get compensated for using their own vehicle? Well, I genuinely can't afford to not get compensated for the use of my own vehicle, and when I have to be the mobile guard, I really try to minimize my travel time. Instead of changing buildings every hour like most guards do on mobile duty, I only change buildings every 2 or 3 hours. And last night, I did something I've never done before. I split my knife with one half at one building and the other half at the second. Now, this was my reasoning. Due to the way the clients scheduled their workers, the first building is empty for the entirety of our shift, and no one comes in until an hour after our shift ends. However, in the second building, workers end their shift around halfway through our shift, with the next shift coming in at the end of our shift. Because of this, I figured I could spend half the night at the first building to allow that guard to complete all their necessary jobs, then switch to the second building to help get the workers out at the end of their shift, as well as helping get the next shift in later. And this was all under the understanding that either guard could radio if they needed assistance while I was at the other building. And that's the entire point of being the mobile guard. And by the way, that is also why we have radios. Well, care to guess who was in the second building? Because if you guessed Patricia, you would be correct. To be entirely fair here, I did make a pretty major mistake. I failed to communicate my intentions beforehand. But that, however, is the end of my leniency towards Patricia in this matter, because this is what happened. About an hour into the shift, she calls over the radio asking for an estimated time of arrival on when I would be changing buildings. I then let her know that I'd be over there halfway through the shift unless she needs me before that, and even asked her outright if she needed me right then and there. Well, she sounded a little annoyed when she said, "No, I just wanted some clarification and communication." And I really thought that was the end of it, but trust me, it gets way worse. Not once in the next 3 hours did she radio for assistance. Not one single time. When I finally made it to her building, I went in and greeted her, more cheerful than usual by the way, because I vastly preferred her company to that of the other guard on duty at the time. But then she snapped at me and said, "How could you think it's acceptable to be in the empty building all night?" While also saying, I had to get someone to cover so I could go to the bathroom and to get some ice. Well, at that point, my mood went from 100 to 0 just like that. So I coldly reminded her that I told her to call if she needed anything, and that was the entire point of the mobile guard. I even explained that I had intentionally split my night to be in her building to help get workers out at the end of their shift, as well as helping get them in for their morning shift. But she was not having any of it. She pointedly ignored me the rest of the night, and not 5 minutes after I clocked out, I got an email sent out by our supervisor to all guards stating the following: the mobile officer should not spend the majority of their time in an empty building, as apparently it was unfair to the officer in the full building. So yeah, Patricia complained about my one mistake to the supervisor because she was so entitled she couldn't get on the radio for 5 seconds to ask for assistance even once. Now, I could say a lot of mean things about Patricia, but she truly was an absolute Karen. First of all, I absolutely would be demanding compensation for using my vehicle to go from building to building. There's no way I would be okay with that, and they better give me a company vehicle or something, because that's absolutely not going to happen for my car in the slightest. But also, I really think you did the job wrong and you're somehow blaming Patricia for being upset about it. Because according to the job description that you laid out, you're supposed to go from building to building every hour. Like that is how it's supposed to work, and you didn't do that. Instead, you kind of adapted it in a way where yes, you really did camp in one building and then went to the other one at the end of your shift. And sure, I totally understand. Patricia really could have called and been like, hey, come over here real quick, I need to use the bathroom, or something like that. But based on the way she was trained and everybody else in the building and the company was trained for this specific job, she shouldn't have to do that. She should be able to expect that, oh, in about 45 minutes to an hour, my coworker will be coming by and then I can use the bathroom. Like, I understand that you had other things that you needed to do, but the point of being a mobile unit is to be mobile. So in my opinion, Patricia wasn't being entitled for expecting support. It's literally established in the routine, and you changed that just to make your life a little bit better. So in my opinion, I think the original poster is absolutely being a jerk. And if I was in your coworker's shoes, I absolutely would report you as well. Like, what you're doing is so weird and unacceptable. But truly, that is just my opinion. What do you think though? Do you think the original poster has a point, or do you think the coworker had every right to report this person? Leave a comment down below. We would love to read what you have to say. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for leaving a negative Google review and hurting my doctor's feelings after her staff literally ruined my experience with that office pretty much forever? Here's what happened. Okay, for the past 10 years, my family and I have been patients of a wonderful doctor. She's been there for us through so much, and I can't speak highly enough of the care that she's provided. When I lost my mom unexpectedly, she helped me navigate a tough time by assisting with FMLA paperwork, as well as short-term disability insurance, and adjusting my depression medication. And I am deeply grateful for the support she gave me during that difficult time. Recently, however, an issue with her office has left me questioning if I handled the situation poorly, or if the office could have done more to help me. Here's what happened. A few months ago, after everything was sorted with my FMLA paperwork and insurance, I scheduled a wellness check for my 11-year-old daughter. About 2 weeks before the appointment, I got a call from the office's billing representative. She informed me that a bill for my daughter's visit over a year ago hadn't been paid because our insurance company had mysteriously changed my daughter's date of birth in their system. The claim had been rejected, and now it was apparently too late to be rebilled. The billing lady demanded that I pay $350 out of pocket, or they would cancel my daughter's appointment. Now, I pay $900 a month for my family's insurance premium, so I expect them to pay for what they owe when we get sick. My husband and I both work in public education, so we don't make a lot of money. So I told her I would try to fix it with my insurance, but thankfully the insurance company corrected the error and assured me that the doctor's office could rebill the claim, and they would process it. Well, I communicated this to billing, but she flat out refused to rebill it. This meant I had to go through a time-consuming process with the insurance company myself just to get them to pay directly. And if you've ever dealt with an insurance company before, then you know they don't do anything fast or make it easy for you. Throughout this, I kept the office updated. However, after one of my calls with the billing representative, I found myself locked out of the patient portal. I couldn't access it for days and assumed there were technical issues. After 5 days, I called to find out what was going on, and I was told I'd been locked out because I owed them money. This happened immediately after my last conversation with the billing representative, which made me feel like it was a deliberate action. I've always been on top of my bills and had a spotless payment history with them for 10 years. This situation wasn't my fault, and yet I still felt penalized. When I called the office manager to address it, she didn't return my call for 2 weeks. At this point, I was so frustrated that I wrote a Google review about my experience. I made it clear that my issue wasn't with the doctor, but with the office staff and their handling of the situation. When the office manager finally called me back, she said my doctor was deeply offended by the review and wished that I had spoken to her first. And seriously, I was surprised by this reaction. I couldn't have spoken to her because I was locked out of the portal, and I honestly didn't feel like it wasn't her responsibility to deal with the administrative issues. I believe her staff should handle those problems more professionally. I also mentioned to the office manager that there were several complaints about the office staff on Google as well. She then said they were all disgruntled past employees. And it's like, really? All of them? That's quite a coincidence, don't you think? When they finally opened the patient portal, I messaged my doctor an apology for offending her with my Google review, but I also explained my side of the story. Well, she didn't seem to have a lot of compassion for my side of the story, and it honestly blew my mind. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Holy crap, this is so upsetting. Here you have a doctor you've seen for 10 years, someone that you have a solid relationship with, who clearly knows your family history and your life and has helped you through a lot of different things. But then in comes her stupid staff to ruin the entire experience. As someone who's worked in the medical field, let me tell you something. The way the billing manager and office manager handled this situation is completely unacceptable. They are completely incompetent and they should have handled this way better. From the billing situation to the office manager being like, wow, the doctor's really offended right now. And it's like, good, I hope she's offended and you guys get fired. You blocked the original poster from having any communication with the doctor. You demanded that they give you money while also refusing to rebill it, which by the way is incredibly easy. And then you try to sit there and take the high ground and be like, wow, the doctor's really upset about this. Yeah, no kidding. You guys suck at your job and it's your fault. So no, you're not the jerk for leaving a bad review, but if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely start looking for another doctor, because clearly this doctor you've known for 10 years has let her standards fall completely with her staff. And that, in my opinion, is not your fault in the slightest. My toxic, entitled father mistreated me my entire childhood, as he constantly tried to force me to conform to a gender identity that I did not agree with. But now that I'm an adult, I decided to get some revenge by not only embarrassing him in front of the entire family, but also exposing him to the family that he has never been a good father to me. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I'll say it bluntly. My genetic father is a horrible human being. By this point, I've completely cut contact with him. However, this happened on the very last time I ever had to see him. My mother left him when I was about 13 years old. However, due to his lies and manipulation, the court system failed me, and I was still forced to see him. So the mistreatment he inflicted continued until I was 18 years old, and only got worse after the divorce because he knew that hurting me meant that it would hurt my mother. He is the absolute definition of trash, and my rather unique situation was only fuel on this dumpster fire. I won't go into too great of detail about his depravity, but I will simplify it and say that if you weren't a straight white man or a straight woman in a prairie dress, then you were going straight to Hades in his eyes and didn't deserve the time of day. And as for me, being born as both genders, it was a living nightmare. Now, having both genders basically means I have incompatible traits from both sides, and I actually didn't even find this out until I was almost an adult. However, I had a lot of health problems because of it, and due to looking highly androgynous growing up, I was called a freak. At birth, I was signed off as a girl, and when I began having some unique changes with puberty, it was drilled into me that I was basically just an ugly woman who didn't deserve anything because I didn't meet my father's standards. The discussion about my gender and who I am is a very long story. However, as an adult, I made the choice for both my physical and mental health to become fully male. Due to my father, there were only two people in my entire family who knew about this: my mother and my grandmother on my father's side. My mother's an amazing person and was extremely happy for me, and my grandmother was the sweetest woman you'd ever meet. Picture the stereotypical grandma who bakes cookies in children's books, and that honestly was her. The woman would give her last penny just to make sure you felt happy and safe. She was delighted to hear that I was starting to find who I was. My grandfather passed away shortly after I was born. However, my grandmother started dating again many years later, and when I was 18, I got an invitation to her wedding. She was in her 70s and acting like a teenager with her new fiance, and it was amazing to see her so happy. And of course, I wanted to go, but there was just one problem. My father would also be there too. At this point, I was already on hormone therapy for my treatments. I had facial hair, a flat chest. I didn't even look like my old self anymore, and I didn't want to think of the nightmare that would rain down from my father seeing me like this. But then I stopped myself in that moment, and I thought about it a little bit more. And after a bit of contemplating, I figured this would be perfect. He had always lied to family about what happened, painting himself as this loving father. So what kind of perfect dad wouldn't be happy for their son, right? Well, out of absolute spite, I went to a thrift store, got myself a classy black and purple gown, got some makeup, a pair of heels, and went to the wedding in full drag. My mother questioned as to why I was dressing up like a woman for this instead of just grabbing my suit, and when I told her what I was going to do, she broke out into full belly laughter and began insisting on helping me get ready to go. The wedding was lovely, everyone was smiling, and my grandmother was glowing the entire time, and I actually didn't see my father for the bulk of the reception. We had a big family, so I wasn't really surprised. However, at the end, as as everyone was talking and getting cake, that's when my father spotted me. By this point, most of the family didn't even recognize me. However, when I was standing next to my mother, my father must have put the pieces together and started walking over. I then told my mother to go and be with my grandmother, and I was now left alone with my awful father in a crowd of people. He came right up to me and asked me what I was doing, and I just shrugged and continued people watching. He then leaned against the wall with me, and just as I expected, he began lecturing me. He pointed to my grandmother and now step-grandfather, and he said, "You see that? Make sure you get yourself a good man like that. Someone who makes enough to support you so you can stay home." I then looked over at him, and in my now deep voice, I said to him very simply, "Yeah, that would be great if I didn't have a girlfriend." Now, I wish I had a camera right at that moment just to capture the image of his eyes growing wide as he choked on his own words, and for the first time ever, he was left speechless. I could see him getting angry and trying hard to contain it, but I didn't care. I just casually waved over my grandmother. She came over smiling, and for the first time, I spoke openly with her in front of my father, telling her about my girlfriend and my journey into becoming a man. She was thrilled for me having a girlfriend, giving me a huge hug and telling me to invite her so that she could celebrate with everybody. And so that's exactly what I did. Now my father remained speechless, just staring at me as his face turned red, not daring to say a single thing in front of his own mother and their entire family. This was the one time that he was forced to be a decent human being to his child, because he was surrounded by everyone he had lied to, and he was stuck between the lie and the man he really was. After a while of him just stewing in his very clear anger, he turned around and left without a single word, walking out on his own mother's wedding. My grandmother had me and my mother sit with her and her now husband at a table, and we all laughed and ate, enjoying our time together and making memories without him. My step-grandfather asked why my father left so suddenly and asked if everything was all right, and when I told him what happened, he looked at me with a sigh and said, "This is supposed to be a joining of families together. If he doesn't want to be part of that family, then so be it." And with all things considered, I honestly couldn't agree more. Okay, I love everything about this. This is like the perfect way of putting this guy in his place. You not only showed that this guy has no hold over your life, but he also can no longer lie about him being a good father to you, because he absolutely mistreated you, and I'm so sorry that you dealt with that. But also, I'm so glad that you have supportive family members who love you for exactly how you are, and the fact that you were finally able to put this guy in his place, especially in front of his family, in my opinion, was something this guy absolutely deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by calling someone the wrong name for several years at my job as a hostess. And now, after all these years later, I'm finally corrected and I feel like a complete idiot. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. In 2019, I worked as a hostess at a restaurant. Now, I actually applied to be a fry cook, but they recently had their only hostess quit and decided my 20-year-old lady self would be better as a host. They were kind of misogynistic like that and never really hired women to be fry cooks anyways, but I accepted the hostess role because social anxiety or not, I needed the money. This restaurant was also really popular as a takeout spot though, and as a hostess, one of my main duties was handling phone orders and walk-in to-go orders. Now, we had a lunch special that was a really good deal, so good that some people came in multiple times a week to order it to go. We took down names for takeout orders instead of giving numbers, so I really got to remember some names, and John was one of these regulars. He was older than me, probably mid-30s, and always looked kind of sad and nervous, but he was cute to me and I remember him well. One time, he came in a couple of hours after the lunch special was over, and like I said, the guy always seemed skittish and sad in the first place. Now, he seemed disappointed but was understanding and willing to order it at full price, but I felt bad, and I told him this one time only I could give him 10% off because I wanted to cheer him up. Now, it's still not as good of a deal as the lunch special, but it was something. He then actually smiled, thanked me, and looked happy for once. He hardly ever missed the lunch special after that, and thankfully when he did, he didn't expect the discount. Whenever he came in, I would always start typing his name and punching in his order, and just waiting to confirm that he wanted the usual before sending it to the kitchen and taking his payment. When it came out, I would call, order for John, and he would come and grab it and thank me smiling. COVID happened and we didn't see a lot of our regulars like we used to. We were takeout only at that point, but even some of our takeout regulars weren't going out like that, and with everybody wearing a mask, it was harder to recognize regulars. But even then, I still tried. I kept working, but then I moved away for a while and I met a guy, and after a few months, I ended up moving back and I brought the guy with me. When I came back to my restaurant, I was unsure of my knowledge of the regulars. It had been too long, and And plus, I was in love now, so it kind of clouded my brain. So when I saw people that I had probably seen 100 times before, I still asked them to confirm everything. That is, except for John. I kept pre-typing everything in for him and continuing my process the same as before, and he would still smile at me as I passed the order over after calling out order for John. I felt like maybe I hadn't completely lost my knack since I still remember John. Now, I stayed at that restaurant long enough to where eventually they made me a manager. I was in the kitchen 90% of the time actually doing stuff like working the fryer, which is something I applied for all those years ago. One day we were short a hostess and I, as the manager, had to fill in. I was feeling especially self-conscious, doubting myself as I wasn't front of house as often as I was before. So when he came in, I did my usual and I started pre-typing everything. He came to the host stand smiling. He mentioned not seeing me in a while, and after I explained, he congratulated me on the promotion, saying that I deserved it. So I thanked him, I read back his regular order, and I asked to confirm by saying, "And it's for John, right?" Well, he was still smiling when he said to me, "Actually, my name is Chris, but I know sometimes I look like John." And it's like, what in the world is going on? I've been calling him the wrong name for years. Who is John? He knows John? Was he trolling me the entire time? I 100% knew it was the same guy I'd been calling John for years. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. Thankfully, though, I moved away shortly afterwards. And it's for several reasons, not just because I was terribly embarrassed. And thankfully, I never saw this guy ever again, because this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Oh my gosh, I would die from embarrassment. There's no way I would ever live that down. Thank God you moved away. Like, seriously, that is so embarrassing. But honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for getting someone's name wrong. This guy introduced himself as John all those years ago, and now he's trying to be like, actually my name's Chris. And it's like, no, it's not John, your name's John, don't lie to me. And sure, this is super embarrassing, but also it's incredibly funny. Am I the jerk for offering to get my sister groceries from Dollar Tree instead of outright giving her cash? Because right now she's saying she would rather go hungry than eat from Dollar Tree. And at this point, I'm not sure if I offended her or if I was in the right. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister is broke and has no groceries. And this is also all according to her. I have not personally seen her kitchen, so I have no idea. And right now, she's asking me for $40 that she can borrow. And by the way, she never pays anyone back for anything. And she wants that money so she can get some groceries. I told her I'm really strapped for cash right now myself, as I just had to pay rent, the bills, and take my dog to the emergency vet, which in itself costs about $487. And I don't get paid again until next week. As a side note, she does not work due to severe health issues. Her husband does work, but doesn't make that much, and yet somehow makes too much money to qualify for food stamps. So what I told my sister was that I could go to Dollar Tree and get some stuff to help them get by until he gets paid. Well, she got really upset and offended. She then said to me, no thanks, I'm good. I then told her I watch a lady on TikTok who makes really good looking stuff with Dollar Tree items, but she still said no, especially because their meat looks nasty and her main meal that she eats daily is meatloaf, which I really can't afford to get right now because where we live, ground beef is so expensive. At this point, I told her, well, beggars can't be choosers. Those are her options. It's either that or go hungry. She said she would rather go hungry, and then she hung up on me. So seriously, am I the jerk for offering to get my sister groceries from the Dollar Tree? I feel like I might be the jerk here because yes, I could have given her the $40, but then I would not be 100% certain that would actually go towards groceries. And I've learned the hard way to never give her cash. But now I feel like a jerk and a bad sister. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk because seriously, what you're offering her is some kind of like assistance to get by. And I don't blame you for not giving her cash. If she really is strapped for like groceries, then buying her groceries directly really would be a good solution. So no, you're clearly not the jerk here because it sounds like your sister is absolutely not trustworthy. My manager made me cry today at my restaurant job as she literally embarrassed me in front of the entire staff. And now I honestly feel so stuck and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I really need to vent right now. I don't work as often at this restaurant, but just on Friday nights and Saturday nights. Now I had a full section and we were at the dinner rush. I have been serving in this restaurant for about 7 months and it was my first restaurant job, so I'm thankful they made me a server with no experience. I did mess up a lot in the beginning, but I have gotten better. One of my tables ordered their sandwich with no cheese, and we had a food runner, but I also got very busy with serving drinks, and I was not at the kitchen for about 10 minutes. One of the runners took the no cheese sandwich to the wrong table, and I didn't notice. In fact, I went to ask if everything was fine, and they said yes. So then, when I served my other table and brought the sandwich, I didn't see that it had cheese. I went to ask for another sandwich on the fly, but I then made a fatal error to go to the kitchen and see if it was done, and made a slight comment how my table looked a bit upset. My manager then heard me saying this this and went ballistic, saying this happened because I was not in the kitchen. I decided to serve my sandwich, and it was around that time where they were low on water and got on me for not refilling their water fast enough. She found everything that I could possibly be doing wrong and yelled at me for it, telling me my section was too big to handle, even though my full section was happy and drinks were always filled. Now, this isn't the first time I've gotten yelled at by this manager, who by the way is the head manager, and when she does this, I just zone out. I mean, my face just goes blank. She yelled at me in front of everyone. It was so degrading, and other servers were around just completely all quiet. 2 other servers told me that it was not fair how she talked to me, and I eventually broke down in front of them. It happens when I'm mad, and I was having what I felt like was a panic attack because I was still in a rush and I had no time to cry. The no cheese table probably saw my eyes being extremely red, but I was mad. I was humiliated and I felt so powerless. When I then tried to talk to this manager, she just yells and never listens to any reason. And on top of that, she wants to always be right and say to me how she's running a business here. I understand that I'm not the best server, and sure, I made many mistakes before, but she is emotional, degrading, and then she acts like things are okay after that, calling me sweet cheeks and all this other stuff. I understand restaurant work is stressful and we yell, but I really feel like her punching bag, mostly because I don't talk back, and I'm more of the quiet one, still not fully out of her shell type. I have been told that she does this to every server that still works there, and she stops once you stand up to her, and I just need to tell her I cannot be treated like that in front of people. It doesn't help anyone to be like that. She made me cry and one of our hostess cry. Thank God I had eye drops in my bag because my eyes were blazing. She's the #1 reason I want to quit, but the food prices here are high enough where the tip out is really good. I'm still not the best server, but I have improved so much, and I have become better with prioritizing, but she still makes me feel like I did in my first month, and right now with all things considered, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can. You need to stand up for yourself. You do not deserve to be treated this way. You cannot allow this lady to walk all over you like this, because trust me, it will happen every single day if you let it. There will be no compromise in her head. She will literally see you as a punching bag and that's it. And trust me, this is not gonna get easier before it gets better. She won't care if you work hard and you suddenly like improving your performance. She will always find a reason to put you down. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would go straight up to her the next time she tries that, making sure I'm in front of the entire staff, and tell her outright that she's never talking to me like that again. She needs to be respectful just as much as you've been respectful to her. You are doing a good job and she needs to recognize that. And honestly, who cares if she fires you or not? This lady cannot talk to you like that and you do not deserve that. So hopefully you can grow the courage to get this taken care of, or if anything, just find another job, because that manager sounds like an absolute toxic nightmare. Am I the jerk for accidentally catching my brother's girlfriend in a lie, as I exposed the fact that she wasn't actually a lawyer? Because right now the entire family is pissed off at me, and I now am not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 19-year-old female, and I have a brother who's 24 who I will call Liam for the sake of the story. Earlier this year, he started dating a girl that he met at his climbing class that I will call Emma. Emma is 26 years old, and they've been together for 4 months, and this weekend he decided to introduce her to us. They arrived yesterday and are staying until tonight. She is a really nice person, and we get along well. Then, at one point, my dad asked her what she did in life, and she said that she was a lawyer. Now, I was super interested because I'm currently studying law and have wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 10 years old, so I was very excited to ask her questions about it. I asked about what cases she had, how she studied to become a lawyer, and what her days looked like, and many more things. Now, I might have been a little over-enthusiastic and annoying, but I didn't realize it at the time, and I was just excited to get to ask someone questions about my dream job. But at some point, she said something that seemed incoherent to me. The details might be long and boring, but basically, she just said something that isn't technically possible. So I was curious and a bit confused, and I asked her how that was possible, because I just thought she's the professional, so she must know better than me. But as she tried to explain it, she just said more incoherent and impossible things. It was kind of like someone quoting things from Grey's Anatomy to doctors, if you see what I mean. So I asked more about it to understand, and that's when she admitted that she wasn't actually a lawyer and she worked at a bookstore. She told us that she was very sorry for lying, and then left the table, and my brother followed after her. Well, my parents then kind of scolded me for being so intrusive, and when my brother came back, he was a bit angry. He started telling me that I was wrong for interrogating her, and that I made her uncomfortable, and that she had lied because she was embarrassed about her job, and I just made her more embarrassed. And now he hasn't been talking to me ever since then, and neither has Emma. Now, I'm not sure I'm in the wrong here, but they all seem to think so. I get that me asking questions was annoying, and maybe a bit too much, but I truly didn't have any bad intentions. I was just excited to be able to talk about it with someone. And also, I don't understand how everyone is so okay with the fact that she lied to my brother for 4 months, and then she also lied to us. I get being embarrassed, but I don't know if it's still a bit weird to me. But I never meant to make her uncomfortable, and I genuinely liked her. I don't see how I'm in the wrong, but maybe I just can't see it. So please, I really need to know, am I the jerk for calling her out on not being a lawyer? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so weird. You have to be a special kind of stupid to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I'm a lawyer. Like, did she not think she was gonna have some kind of questioning about her career? Because that is not a degree or some kind of profession you just walk into. It takes a long time to become one, and you definitely need to know your stuff. So if anything, the original poster is doing their brother a favor. Who would want to date someone who lies in this manner, and so casually at that? No one cares that you work in a bookstore or anything like that. Like, seriously, just be honest about what you do. Because lying like that, in my opinion, is a huge red flag. And the fact that you expose that, in my opinion, is doing your brother a huge favor. 2 entitled parents do nothing to shut up their stupid kids as I'm trying to watch Wicked in the movie theater. Because as a result, they were screaming and making noise, as well as running up and down the aisle the entire time. And I'm honestly still pissed off about this experience. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I was really excited to see Wicked, but there were these 2 awful parents who let their kids talk all through the first half of it. And they were not just talking, but literally screaming. One little girl kept saying, "What's that?" every 5 seconds. Now, I'm not totally sure how many kids there were, but I think there were 2 or 3 of them. Now, I was at the back and there were some empty seats at the front. I went there thinking it would help, but seeing as they were in the middle, it really didn't matter. At the halfway mark, I found a staff member and I asked them to tell the parents to quiet their kids. The kids shut up with their vocal cords, but one boy kept running up and down the aisle, which then caused noise and distracted me because I was right next to the aisle. I felt bad for the kids because they were clearly bored out of their mind. I'm not saying that kids can't like Wicked, but it's not made for kids. The most frustrating thing was the lobby outside was empty, and the kids could have run up and down to their heart's content, but the parents just had to not miss anything and instead ruined it for everyone else. So if you have to see Wicked, get a babysitter, and if you can't get one, then keep your kids quiet. Give them some snacks or an iPad, I don't know. Just make sure you're not being antisocial to everyone around you. Man, this really pisses me off because theater etiquette is so gone these days. People just don't care about anyone else, and when they go to the theater, they're like, oh, I'm gonna make noise and do whatever I want. Especially when it comes to a musical. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear you screeching at the top of your lungs. I didn't come here to listen to you screech along to the musical. I came to watch them do it because obviously the people on screen are way better than all of us. So yeah, this whole scenario just pisses me off, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled old jerk steals stuff out of my trunk, all as some kind of weird life lesson about how some criminal could steal out of my car when I'm not looking. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with my nosy, entitled neighbors that I really hope I don't deal with them ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we got a new fridge yesterday, and it's one of those humongous double-door monstrosities. And of course, it came with a humongous amount of styrofoam and cardboard, all of which that I need to get rid of. And the quickest way for me to get rid of it is shoving it in my car and driving it over to the municipal waste depot. So I started cutting things apart and bringing them to my car, which is parked in my driveway. Unfortunately, it's so much trash that I have to go 5 times to my car. I go on the first trip, open my car's trunk, and I load it up. And for the sake of convenience, I leave the trunk open. Yes, it's right next to the sidewalk, but I live in a pretty safe area, and I'm only loading trash. So if anyone wants to help themselves to styrofoam, then sure, why not? Go for it. I go back inside and bring the next 2 loads out and into my car, and on my 3rd trip, some old entitled jerk stands next to my car. Now, I don't know him, and he probably doesn't know me, but he's in my driveway and right next to my car. So seemingly, he's interested in talking to the owner of said car, which is unfortunately me. The next time I approach my car with both my hands full of styrofoam, I say out loud, "Excuse me," and then I shove it into my trunk. This old entitled guy then starts asking me if this is my car, but after I tell him that it is, he then immediately launches into a tirade about how I must be crazy leaving it open and whether I want to invite criminals into the neighborhood and how irresponsible I am. I respond by saying, "I don't care about your opinion and I need you to get off my property." And I yell this at him, and I honestly just don't even wait for him to reply, but instead storm back inside to get the last bits of plastic wrap. For the last time, I get back to my car, and this old entitled jerk is thankfully missing, but also so is a big piece of styrofoam from my trunk. And this was the base plate that the fridge stood on, which is basically the largest and most unwieldy piece of them all. Now, I was asking myself, did this old entitled jerk take it? I look around for a while thinking that he might have thrown it somewhere, but no, it's definitely gone. Well, my partner and I shrug, we get into the the car and drive to the depot. On our way back from there, my wife and I go for lunch and shop some groceries. And all in all, we were gone for almost 2 hours. But the moment we come home and step out of my car, this old entitled jerk storms across the street with a missing styrofoam piece in hand, and he is visibly angry at me for some reason. He then immediately tries to go off at me by ranting about how he's now taught me a lesson about keeping my car locked, and that I should be lucky that it was only him and not some actual criminal, and that I'm getting my property back. Well, once again, I tell him to leave my property, and also that I will call the police if I ever see him on here ever again. He says he's happy to never talk to me again once I take back what is mine, but I reply that I'm not taking that piece back, and I suggest he stick it right up his rear end. And at this point, he says the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. He threatens to call the police on me for not taking the styrofoam back that he stole out of my car. So I put my hands on my hips, and I tell him I would gladly tell the police about how I just had some stuff stolen from my car, and that the perpetrator was right here. Well, he huffs and puffs, and then throws the styrofoam to my feet and stomps off like a little toddler. And honestly, I'm so sick of my neighbor, and I really hope I never deal with him ever again. Wow, this idiot is completely out of line. First of all, it is just styrofoam that he took out of your car, and I think you have the right idea of basically saying, yeah, whatever, if someone steals it, fine, I don't give a crap. But for this guy to walk on your property, lecture you about putting stuff in your car, and then steal from you to try and teach you a lesson, all while complaining that there are criminals in the area, is honestly the stupidest thing I've ever seen. This guy literally is the criminal in this scenario. He's complaining about himself in a way that's just so weird. So honestly, I kind of wish that you did call the police on this guy, because you literally have evidence right in front of you. And seriously, what is with this guy being like, oh, you got taught a lesson today, look at you? It's like, dude, you're not teaching someone a lesson. I don't know you. You literally stole stuff out of my car regardless of what it is, under the guise that a criminal could do this, but you are the criminal in this scenario. It's honestly so stupid, and I just can't stand people like this, where they have this weird sense of like, oh, I'm so much better than you and I'm so much wiser than you. So yeah, this guy was completely out of line, and hopefully you don't have to deal with him ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not paying my parents' mortgage after my sister moved into their house, despite the fact that my parents said they wanted to sell that house and give me a larger portion of the sale? Because right now they're saying I'm betraying the family, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. For the past 8 years, I've been paying my parents' property taxes and mortgage. They are retired and have very little retirement savings because they put all their money into my sister and I's education. We both went to top universities and found successful jobs afterwards. I felt like I owed my parents for all they sacrificed for me, so it was a no-brainer to help them retire with no financial stress. My parents did not consult my sister about splitting these costs with me, and instead the agreement was that I would get a larger share of the house. Fast forward to now, and my sister unfortunately lost her job last year, and as a result, doesn't have much savings. And she even had to move in with my parents to save money while she looks for a job. I then recently found out that my sister pitched staying permanently in my parents' house, and my parents agreed. Now, I was furious at this because I had been paying for the house with the understanding that it would be sold and I would get a larger share of it. It is very likely that my sister never sells the house and instead raises her eventual family there. Because the original agreement with my parents changed, I stopped paying for the mortgage, leaving it up to my sister to take care of it if she's really taking over the house. My parents are furious with me, saying I'm too money obsessed and should be continuing to help the family while my sister is in a tough spot still looking for a job. Instead, they are promising that eventually my sister will pay me out of my share of the house, plus whatever else I contributed over 8 years. Now, I turned that offer down because there's no guarantee that this will happen, and I don't trust my sister to follow through financially. Now, I may be the jerk for taking such a cynical stance and leaving my family in financial stress, but I feel like I was already burned once through verbal agreements and I don't want to get burned again. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. This honestly is so stupid it's not even funny. You mean to tell me that they went back on a verbal agreement and basically still want you to help pay for it? It's like, wait a second, you're only doing that so you can make money off the sale of the house. Why should you still have to step up and be like, sure, I'll take care of it while also having no equity in it? Like, this is a perfect example as to why you need everything in writing. If it's not in writing, then congratulations, it never happened in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to do this, because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled jerk gives my phone number out just so he doesn't get calls from realtors. So I decided to get some revenge by not only finding this entitled jerk's information, but also giving down his new current phone phone number so that all these phone calls could finally come to an end. Here's what happened. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started getting spam calls from realtors looking for someone by the name of Roy. They spammed me for a week or two and then it stopped. Eventually, I forgot about it and then I moved on. But every once in a while, I would get another one. Every time it was about Roy selling property in a state on the opposite side of the country. Now, instead of telling the caller off like usual, I talked to them one night. They were happy to give me Roy's full name and the address of the property he kept dangling for sale. So I looked him up, and he had been using my phone number on all the real estate websites just so he didn't get bothered with calls. Eventually, the calls went away and I forgot about it again. But about 2 months ago, they started back up again. I remembered where I had written down Roy's info, and I checked him again for an updated phone number. This time, I lucked out and found his real cell phone. I considered texting him to stop giving out my number, but I didn't want to deal with some crotchety old man who thought he was getting one over on a stranger. The very next day, I got yet another phone call with an out-of-state area code. I said to him, "Oh, you're looking for Roy? Hang on a second, let me give you his phone number." And then I recited his phone number to the caller. The person on the line then asked me if I was related to Roy, but I responded by saying, "Nope, I've never met the man, or even been to that city. I live about 3,000 miles away, but that jerk has been giving out my phone number for 4 years. So I did some research and I found him. They responded by saying, "I don't know what you do for a living, but you should really be an investigator." I thanked him and I said, "Would you mind updating your system with that phone number instead?" And they said that they would, while also thanking me for being so nice about this. But after that, I never got another call again, and honestly, for the sake of my sanity, I am incredibly relieved. That is a really crappy thing to do. Instead of putting down your real number, you give out someone else's fake number. Like, if that happened to me, I would be furious. Like, I would be so annoyed. Who wants to be bothered with stuff that literally has nothing to do with you? So good for you for hunting this guy down, because the fact that he dragged you into his mess is honestly so unfair. Would I be the jerk if I kicked my sister-in-law out of my wedding after she has literally done nothing to help out? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I'm getting married to my fiance in the spring of 2025. His sister initially requested to be in the wedding as she wanted to be a bridesmaid. Since the wedding festivities have begun, she has seemed extremely uninterested in being involved in any capacity. She joined in the bachelorette trip, but didn't help in planning, setting, or cleaning up. She also didn't want to get the bridesmaid, which is after my matron and maid of honor followed up with her numerous times. But finally, I got involved and she purchased the dress. But of course, it was 10 weeks after everyone else. She also didn't attend the bridal shower planning meeting, nor has she asked any of my bridesmaids what she can do to help. She has also been uncommunicative with all of the bridesmaids and won't respond to text messages for days or even weeks at a time. And when she finally does respond, there's always an excuse of why she can't do something or couldn't respond. And now she's informed everyone in the bridal party and my fiance, but not me of course, that she isn't attending the bridal shower because she's going to another bachelorette trip. Everyone has known the bridal shower date for months, and seeing as this is my future sister-in-law, it is honestly a slap in the face. It also might be important to note that her husband is a groomsman and has gone above and beyond with helping and planning outings for my fiance and his groomsmen. Her 2 daughters under the age of 2 years old are supposed to be the flower girls as well. I just feel like her presence and attitude thus far has really put a damper and strain on our wedding, which is supposed to be a happy experience. I also don't want to ruin our relationship, but I'm honestly at my wit's end. So seriously, would I be the jerk if I kick my sister-in-law out of my wedding party? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Okay, to start things out, I don't think that you would be the jerk for kicking her out, but I also think you need to realize that if you do that, this will come with negative consequences. I really think if you do this, it will cause a lot of drama in the family, and this will only create a divide that you will probably have no idea how to fix. And sure, obviously discuss this with your fiance first, but taking this step, in my opinion, is one of those where it's like, okay, there's no going back from this, because then her husband and the kids are going to be out of this wedding party, and there's a chance that none of them will show up. So for me, if I was in your shoes, I would just kind of grit my teeth and bear it and be like, okay, whatever, she's not going to be here and I'm not going to waste my time involving her, because it really sounds like everyone's reached out to try and get her involved. You've called her, you've texted her, you've tried to see if she can be involved, and honestly, she's not communicating. So if I was in your shoes, I would just move forward without her. And sure, she can stay as a bridesmaid if she wants, but you can guarantee that she's staying at the end of the line. Like, she's going to be a bridesmaid in name only, because the way she's acting is just completely inappropriate. So no, you wouldn't be the jerk if you did kick her out, but in my opinion, this really will set things off in a terrible manner. Am I the jerk for saying no to babysitting on my birthday for my best friend who is basically demanding that I travel to Puerto Rico and watch her kid while she goes out and has fun? Because right now she's not talking to me, and at this this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 40-year-old female, and I have a supposed best friend who's also 40, and we've been friends ever since we were 15. I have been a mom for 23 years, including my pivotal time where I should have been living my life and having fun, but also being kid-free. She just had a kid at 35. She is single and still lives at home with parents, who, by the way, provide everything financially to her and the kid. My birthday was this past weekend, and I'm at a stage in my life where I can celebrate my birthday without kids without being mom. Well, my former best friend announced that she was going to Puerto Rico that same weekend, and she said, well, why don't you come with us? Meaning her and her kids. And her reasoning to go was so that she could get some action, if you know what I mean. In fact, her reasoning for inviting me was so that I can watch her kid while she goes and does whatever she wants. Well, I respectfully declined, saying that I had other plans, which I did for a whole month prior to this conversation. Once I said that, she got mad at me because I wouldn't spend $1,300 just in travel and room alone to spend my birthday babysitting her kid. Meanwhile, I've never asked her to watch any of my kids for the entirety of our friendship for any reason, period. The entire friendship of 25 years went down in a downward spiral from there, literally in a matter of a week. This got so bad that she was mad at me that I was working and driving 3 hours out of town and I didn't respond to her. She also sent me nasty pictures in regard to a legitimate award that I won for videography. Well, my birthday came along and she didn't even tell me happy birthday. In fact, she's saying that she's out there living her best life while also posting pictures from Puerto Rico. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to watch her kids and somehow setting boundaries? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so incredibly intrusive. You mean to tell me that she wanted you to come along to Puerto Rico so that she could have some kind of babysitter while she went out into the night to try and sleep around? Like, what is going on right now? That is honestly insane. At that point, just leave your kid at home and hire a babysitter, because it's clear that she was just trying to use you in this situation. So no, you're not the jerk at all, and honestly, this lady is incredibly entitled, and I don't blame you for stepping away in the slightest. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that if her boyfriend of 3 months and his kid move in, then we are moving out, because things are cramped as it is, and this situation is absolutely not fair? Here's what happened. So my mom and dad had me at a very young age. My mom was 17 and my dad was 19. It was pretty tough, especially back in the day, but we all made it work somehow. But when I was 12 years old, my dad got a heart attack and passed away, and it then just left me and my mom. Ever since my dad, she has had 2 serious guys, but it never worked out because she always said that no one can compare to your dad. Well, that is until now. At this point, I am married, and my mom lives up at the coast in a very small town, the kind where the only shop for groceries is a small convenience store. My husband and I got into some financial issues, and my mom said that we should move in with her so that we can get back on our feet. Now, I was skeptical at first because it is obviously not ideal, but my mom, with her kind heart, said to me, I can see that you feel bad about it. Don't feel bad. Life is hard enough, and parents are there to lift their children up and catch them when they fall. You need to come back home and regroup and gather back strength, so life is not that hard on you. Now, my mom lives in a small coast property that she rents, and it's the type of place that looks like a 1-bedroom cabin from the outside. Well, it's a 3-bedroom and 1 bathroom, and the walls are thin. The Wi-Fi is rocky because of the coast and all the wind, and my husband works remotely in IT, so it's definitely not ideal, but we are making it work. Well, we have been here for about 20 days now, and it was going good, and it honestly felt like a dream. But yesterday, my mom calls me. A guy she dated last year proposed to her, and she hasn't given an answer yet. But she told him and his 16-year-old that they are welcome to move in. A couple hours after that, she came back home all excited, but the smile quickly faded when I started asking questions. And this was nothing unreasonable, just the logical ones that got our heads spinning, like, okay, how could you ask him to move in after 1 phone call of catching up after 3 months of dating a year before? How are we going to live here? She then got defensive, and I tried explaining that I'm just worried about her, and it all feels a bit impulsive. A few hours of everyone just keeping out of each other's faces, my mom came to me asking if I would take a ride with her to the convenience store. On the road, she asked me if I was really just worried about her, and I said to her, of course, you're my mom, and it would have been the same if the roles were reversed. Then she asked me and said, well, what do you want me to say? I responded by saying, I want you to say you didn't just do something that impulsive without giving it some kind of thought. She then said to me, it is my house. You are not going to be dictating what is allowed and who is allowed in my home. I responded by saying, I agree, but you invited your daughter and son-in-law to come and live with you in an already cramped space to help us, and not even 20 days later, you want to move a man in him with his 16-year-old son, and after only 3 months of dating the previous year, and then you come to us to inform us about it? I'm not saying that you should have asked permission, but a discussion would have been kind. Well, from there on, it was total silence from the convenience store to back home. When I got home, I told my husband what happened, and he said I better go ask forgiveness for speaking so out of line. He said to me, "You can't tell a grown woman what to do. She raised you by herself, and we can't expect her to put her life on hold for us, even if a discussion would have been the right thing to do." Well, I thought about it a while, and I decided that he was right. It was out of line, and so I apologized, but it did not go as I thought it would. She said to me, "It's kind of you to apologize, but it wasn't necessary. You just expressed your worry, and I have to respect that because you are my daughter. But he is special, and I'm not going to rescind my offer, and I will not ask for permission. If he wants to come, then he is coming, and that's that." Well, I just stood there completely dumbfounded. How could she be so obtuse about it, and not even understand that she is putting us in an uncomfortable situation as well? So I just said, "That's fine. You can make your own decisions in life, but we cannot all live here. And so if they move in, we will move out. It really would be the best thing for all of us." She then said to me, "Oh, come on, honey, you're being a bit rash now. You don't need to move out, and we will make it work. You need to sort out your things." I said to her, "No, Mom, it's not rash. We cannot all live here. If the house was bigger, it would be different. But 5 people in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom cabin is a bit much and unrealistic if you really think it will work. My husband also needs to work. And also, where will he work?" She then said to me, "Maybe you both need to just think about this some more and then get back to me." And that was that. Ever since then, my mom is acting like nothing happened, and she's just going on as usual. Now, it's important to note that I've never met this man or his child. In fact, I never even knew his name until this all came up. And when she called me all excited and she said Mike proposed, it then left me stating the obvious. Okay, but who is Mike? So seriously, am I just being an ungrateful child and being a jerk towards my mom? I just feel like this entire plan is too strange, because right now I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This is honestly so weird, because the first question through my head is, why would your mom do this to you? She is literally leaving you in such a bad situation where it's like, okay, we already moved once, and now less than a month later, we're probably gonna have to move again. She literally made you uproot your life, and it's like, okay, why would you do that if you were gonna just be so willing to let someone else move into this small cabin? So no, you're not the jerk at all, because honestly, I would do the exact same thing and definitely move out, because what she's saying is completely unreasonable. My entitled father-in-law is absolutely useless, and it is so frustrating, especially considering that his wife is about to have a serious knee surgery that requires her to do little to nothing until she gets better. And we're honestly so frustrated that right now we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my idiotic father-in-law's wife of many years is about to have a serious knee surgery, and they are both in their early 70s. She will be entirely out of action for a few months, and it's imperative for her recovery that she does not lift or even try to walk much for much of that time. Now, we are having to plan how they are going to survive this time, and we're going to have to plan their food, their cleaning, laundry, and even working out their sleeping arrangements, because the fully fit and theoretical capable father-in-law is entirely and completely incompetent. He can't and honestly won't cook or clean or do laundry or even get off his backside to help his wife move around. He is entirely disinterested in the entire thing, has not listened to a word the consultant or we have told him about how important this is, and has taken no proactive steps to prepare. We're seriously considering having her move in with us so we can actually look after her during her recovery, as we know that left alone with him, she will have to be the one to be doing the dishes and cooking dinner by about day 3, and that she'll end up worse off than without the surgery at all. I just can't imagine being so intentionally useless, especially towards your own wife. Yeah, that father-in-law is really dumb. If he cared about his wife, he would step up and do what needs to be done. But instead, he's kind of being lazy and almost intentionally incompetent. Like, I wouldn't blame you if you moved her into your house so that you guys can actually take care of her, because what you described is something I could absolutely see happening. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.